Yeah.
What is going on, everybody? How are y'all doing? Great to see you again on this Wednesday night as we get to go through the Bears All 22 footage, the good and the bad, as we talk through what in the world happened with the Bears and Rams game. Now, I gotta tell you guys, it's great to be back. I can't wait to get into everything. We've got our pen tool all ready. We can go through, talk through everything. I'll be the first to tell you this is going to be an intriguing stream because all of the All 22 is on one stream. Like, it's basically one big recording instead of being a bunch of different plays that we can pick and choose through. So if you'll bear with me, as usual, we will have as good a time possible going through, breaking everything down, and it's just a matter of where to start. Now, if you'll allow me, the last play that I just watched was the Justin Fields touchdown. I want to start there because I think it's fun. So let's go ahead and walk through this. I'll show the play, and then we'll diagram specifically what it is. I've been meaning to put something out on the Bears run game. Not just, I want to, and I plan to go through, talk about what it is the Bears did well when running the ball. But this in particular is the sort of thing that I anticipate would make the Bears run game really, I mean, look, I don't want to say great, because I think their offensive line is all right, but at least more dangerous than it has been. So let's walk through this because Justin Fields gets in the end zone really nicely. The bright side about having Justin Fields as a running threat is that all of a sudden, I mean, it's going to sound so simple, right? You make the quarterback that is the 11th man, usually in a run play. You're not trying to use the quarterback, so to speak, but you make the quarterback a threat, and that allows you to potentially send the running back this way and send the quarterback this way, which is exactly what this zone read is, as Fields is going to read the defensive end right here, try to catch him in a bind and make a play if he can. Now, as you watch this play unfold, Fields is going to check. He knows where he's looking. He goes, he makes the read, and you're going to see this guy pinch in just a little bit. All he did was pinch in just a smidge, and that's enough for Fields, who, remember, he runs a 4-4, everybody's favorite Fields fact, for him to just yank the ball out and go try to beat somebody in space. Now, he knows, because the Bears have actually done this pretty craftily, that he's got J.P. Holtz coming over to lock him off. So all he's got to do is get Holtz in place, and by that point, Fields is then off and running. Now, Allen Robinson kind of lets, I think this is Jalen Ramsey, so he kind of lets this corner get a little closer than you'd want him to, but Fields turns right upfield, powers through a tackle, and gets in the end zone. I mean, this is the kind of thing that's made Bears fans just salivate at the opportunity to play Fields. It's exactly why people want to see it. It's that when Fields gets into a position where you would think, like with whether it was Mitch Trubisky or, I mean, God forbid, Andy Dalton or Nick Foles would never run this play, but it felt as if there wasn't that extra ability to make something happen. But in this case, not dissimilar to David Montgomery's run, with two defenders tracking pretty much right at him and only one person really walling him off, he's able to find that split between them because he's got the athleticism and the talent to do it and plunge the ball into the end zone. Look, I don't want to make the argument, because I think it's unfair to just what's realistically probably going to happen, that eventually you're not going to see, it's not as if Fields is going to get in and suddenly the Bears are going to score 30 points a game. This is going to take some time either way. But what you are going to see is the occasional play just like this one, where Fields makes basically something out of nothing that I think ultimately makes the prospect of playing him as exciting as it is. And exactly like you're saying, Ian B., I did think Dalton was more mobile than Foles as well, but the big problem that obviously the Bears encountered on this game specifically was the defense. It would be, I feel like, almost reprehensible to start anywhere else. We can go through some offense, we can go through some defense. I'll be the first to tell you guys that I want this to be more of a question and answer session, so feel free to ask questions and then we'll go through answers, because I really don't have much of an agenda talking today. The Bears played a game, like, I'll tell you up front, the Bears played a football game. I thought their offense did better than I anticipated they would against a Rams defense that's loaded with talent, but they ultimately, as we saw, didn't do much. I mean, I would say that they maximized their scoring. If they'd kicked a field goal and Dalton didn't throw an interception, they probably score somewhere on the order of 20 points. And it's still not good. It's just, maybe it's okay against the Rams. So it's this whole like up and down of the offense surprised me pleasantly, but that doesn't make them a great offense. And the defense surprised me in just how poor they were, and we'll walk through some of that. And yeah, so let's go through this. Starting with defense, the way Desai generally wants to run their scheme right here, you've got the Bears would like to threaten two safeties up top. That's the key here. So they like having Vildor here in man, if I can get my drawing tool to work, because Vildor's better at man than he is in zone. He's still finding his comfort. The trouble being that it puts Deshaun Gibson as one of the focal points of the safeties, and Eddie Jackson, who I think has risen now to acclaim for being pretty up and down as far as safety plays goes. So let's walk through what happens on this first play. It's nothing specific. It's more just a reminder that when the Rams ran duo, they're going to isolate Roquan Smith, and he's going to ultimately make the tackle. Not a ton of analysis on this one, and we don't need to walk through the entire game. Again, I'm just truth be told, you're going to see me live and on the air sorting through how to find the plays that I think make a difference, and then we'll walk through quite a few of them. So let's see if we can't find one of the Rams' many passing plays, because I thought McVay, to his credit, called a great football game. So he starts out, this is his first pass of the day, and I thought this one was pretty important, because what you've got right now is Deshaun Gibson and Eddie Jackson and Marquis Christian are all sloughed off a little bit, so you've got about an 8 to 10 yard cushion between all of them. So the Rams want to show you that they can dink and dunk a little bit. So Matt Stafford going to convert an easy first down off Deshaun Gibson being fairly far back, because that's part of Gibson's game, is just sort of finding his spot and staying in it. Think like a classic zone defender, the person that you told they have that zone, and now they're going to stand in it. That's very who Deshaun Gibson is. And then, oh gosh, I think this might be, this is the touchdown. And we get to start with one of Eddie Jackson's biggest mistakes of his career. And I mean that very seriously. Not just the fact that he didn't touch the guy down. Hooray, we get to talk about this. Great. So what you're about to see, obviously, is a play-action pass. So that's going to make things harder on the offense or on the defensive line, who did not do a great job this game, by the way, but not impossible. What really matters here is that the Bears seem to drop into a two-deep setup with Eddie Jackson deep. Goodness gracious. Eddie Jackson's deep, Deshaun Gibson's deep, and then Jalen Johnson's in man, and I think Kendall Vildor mans up this guy, but he's not the target, as you will see. But so as the play progresses, what you've got, Christian pinches in on the run. The linebackers try to get back to where they're going. Vildor denies this zone. It might be even a quarters look that makes it seem as if Jalen Johnson is in man. It's always hard to tell when they're ultimately carrying the vertical. But what I want you to watch is Eddie Jackson right here, because you're going to see him open his hips to the inside, or like to the field side. I guess that would be the boundary. Yeah, he's going to open his hips to the boundary with Jalen Johnson on this guy's outside shoulder. And then obviously, as you know, when he turns that route upfield right here, Jackson's in absolutely no position to defend it. I'm not 100% sure why it is that Jackson's guessing that he's got a corner route here. And I ultimately don't think this is what he should be doing. Always hard to tell when you're not in the defensive back room what exactly they're doing. Either way, if Matt Stafford hadn't seen this obvious, ultimately open touchdown, Deshaun Gibson had given up a massive cushion on his guy right here, who he's only just now breaking on, and if Stafford wanted to get the ball to him, he'd be able to do so fairly easily. So unfortunately, the Bears defense was not a super proficient one in either direction, but obviously Van Jefferson breaks into wide open space. The throw sort of catches him off guard. Neither guy touches him, and he runs on into the end zone. Not a good start to the game overall, obviously, but it's the start that we got. By the way, I'd like to shout out the random idea that I had to get European Game Pass. That's what ultimately paid for this All-22. So if you want to help me out, trying to get some of that reimbursement back would be awesome through support, but I don't want to push anybody. Just know that that's where we ultimately pulled the All-22 from. It was a weird, complicated VPNing process, but we were able to do it, which is great. So now we can move on a little bit. One thing that was really interesting, by the way, about this Bears game specifically was that the Bears ran what felt like 1.5 million RPOs. We don't need to necessarily go chronologically, so let me go ahead and take a look here, find some. But so if we skip ahead to around the mid-second quarter, let's see, what we'll find is a string of plays where they ran just tons and tons and tons of RPOs. So let's get to here. Yeah, we can start here. This works just as well. And yeah, Alessandro, Ejak does have his zone assignment in mind, but even so, I'm surprised that he gave up that or that boundary side leverage, given that that Jalen Johnson was right there. I wouldn't have expected him to just necessarily backpedal all over the place, but you get the idea. Getting danced on a touchdown like that did not help. And then somebody asked something about Quinn. How bad was Quinn? I mean, I wouldn't say like bad. I would really just say that on those sorts of play action scenarios, you end up getting danced a lot more than you expect. But because you're playing the run, so you're pinching in straight at the runner, and then Quinn just pinned his ears back and missed the. I'd need to go back and look at it again. We can do that in a little bit. So then looking at this was the bread and butter of the game. In this case, you're about to see an outbreaking RPO with a general run call like outside of it. And I want you to watch the offensive line to tell the run trigger, because basically what Dalton's going to see is that since Mooney's been given, not Mooney, I think this is Goodwin. But since Goodwin's been given about 10 yards of space and the Rams are threatening what looks like a quarter's look, he's thinking that if this guy falls out right here, that they are going to... And if he falls off, this is an easy throw and catch, so that's exactly what Dalton's going to go for. It's a very similar play to exactly what Fields ran earlier, but he sees the corner just a little too far off, and once he takes that initial step back, basically once he doesn't hesitate, I don't have a slowdown feature on this new setup anymore, but once he sees he's stepped back at all and is respecting the vertical route, it's an easy conversion. So runs came off the board all over the place, because by my count, I had somewhere between 9 and up to maybe 13 RPOs throughout the game. They just ran them like crazy. And on some of them, Dalton did decide to give them off, but I'd say about of what was probably 11, he threw the ball on about 7 of them. Like, I think this next play might be another RPO. It is not. It's just a standard running play. I actually liked a lot of what the Bears did in the running game, by the way. They ran some solid outside zone work. They ran trap blocking. They ran the occasional inside zone to keep things fresh. I thought the end around was creative. I love it every time they pull out toss crack. It never works. It works for McVay. It works for Shanahan. It works for teams with willing wide receiver blockers. But here with Demir Bird and Marquise Goodwin, Allen Robinson, and Darnell Mooney's a willing blocker, but the other three really aren't phenomenal at it. You end up with a lot more messes than you want to clean up. So here's another example of a nice RPO, this one working out actually for the Bears on the run game. So if you watch, I think he's going to trigger off of Ramsey right here. So he watches Ramsey, he sees Ramsey take that step down towards the runner, and so since Ramsey didn't certainly fall off at all and instead attacked him, he's just going to hand the ball off to Damian Williams, who then is going to take advantage of some utter chaos caused by the Bears up front, as you've got Sam Mustipher, the center, and Jermaine Ifedi, the right tackle, both pulling to form sort of a trap bubble. And amidst the chaos, Williams picks through the crowd to make his way downfield. Really nice little play. I mean, again, always interesting for me whenever I see something like a trap block setup on the RPO. But again, so you'll see Holtz come downhill and Ifedi come right there. Daniels steps over to push them out of the way. One thing the Bears were very, very intent on was consistently changing where all these guys were getting attacked from while trying to double Donald as best they could. So with both of these guys pulling over, it's an obvious attempt to create a hole right here, and they managed to do so even with Mustipher never really getting a strong piece of number 54, who just ends up caught in the melee, brought down, and the Bears get about 6 yards off of it. I want to go through this one again, if only because I do think it's really interesting just how much chaos in the running game just how much chaos in the running game can ultimately create success for the Bears. Because if you watch 54 right here, I can't emphasize this enough. Mustipher totally misses him. It's not a good rep on Mustafa's part right there, as you see him get completely taken out of the play. But because Ifedi's on his way over, I'm convinced that he sees Ifedi coming, thinking Ifedi's going to pick him up, and Ifedi steps past him to take out his assignment, leaving the unblocked man to Mustafa, who just never quite gets enough of Williams to bring him down, as Williams puts him out of his shoes and picks up about 6 or 7 yards. These aren't the kinds of things that are going to win a game, but they're the kinds of things that did not work last year, to say the absolute least. So it's nice to see the Bears improving in not just their RPO blocking, but their run game in general. I mean, Haisang Weihu asked, why didn't Nagy feed Monty at least 20 carries? Honestly, I think it's because Nagy didn't expect the run game to work at all, but it actually came through a little bit. I mean, especially by the end of the game, you could see Nagy starting to lean on the running game a little more. I think the Bears adjusted more towards running the ball as the game went on. They just didn't want to use and abuse it because I don't think Nagy trusts his offensive line yet. Here's another RPO, and this is not a good one. I mean, this is already, I think, the fourth RPO, or the third RPO of 4 plays. So the Bears were just hammering these. And what you're going to see here, I think it's as simple as this outside linebacker right here doesn't attack the flat, and the Bears want to run a little RPO screen for Damiere Byrd, who is going to get blocked for by Jimmy Graham and Darnell Mooney. And I namely want you to watch Jimmy Graham because he really doesn't get a piece of anybody, and ultimately ends up with this play not doing much. So the Bears get what they want with this blocker not really able to do anything, and you can already tell Graham's not near close enough to his man with Mooney in a much better position, as Byrd catches the ball, has to avoid him, and stumbles forward for about 3. If you watch this again, this is the kind of play that I think the Bears need to this is the kind of play that the Bears need to clean up, because when I watch this, I don't really know what Graham is looking for over here, as it seems like his cone of vision is more in this direction, and I would assume that that's Mooney's assignment. So what he needs to be doing, at least based on what my understanding of these kinds of plays is, which is not perfect, I haven't coached this scheme before by any stretch of the imagination, but so when Graham should be blocking, I would imagine he's trying to get to number 11, at least make some kind of a difference on the play to open up basically a lane for Byrd versus safety number 24. If you get 6 yards, great. If you get more than that, even greater. But instead, because Graham gets to his assignment late and obviously is not the fleetest of foot, you're going to end up with this guy making a bit more of an impact than the Bears want. Oh boy. And he ultimately makes the play. So let's see if I can't find where I was. There's a lot of nasty in this game. Like, it's a lot of watching the Bears get scored on, unfortunately. But so let's see here. Memory serves. Yep, there we are. So Graham, because he ends up having to chase back after the man, can't do quite enough to help out Byrd, and Byrd runs away. And Byrd is good on him to get like 3, but that brings up the offensive pass interference call, which I guess I'll just show you guys because why not? This one is a lot less fun. Yeah, the offensive line is a weird conversation because I see what you're saying, ENB, about how the offensive line played better than expected. But one thing you'll notice as we go through this film is how often Dalton gets the ball out immediately. In this case, I would actually say he's a little late, ironically enough, because what you're about to see is the Bears run what I've always heard called dragon, where they're going to motion, I think this is Montgomery, but hey, I could be wrong. They're going to motion the running back who's going to take the flat, and then Allen Robinson's just going to run a quick slant over it. Basically, they're watching for where Ramsey goes. If Ramsey stays here to cover Robinson, you throw to the flat and have the running back go pick it up. And then if Robinson comes through if Robinson comes through and Ramsey pushes out to defend that flat area, you hit Robinson. And when you watch this break, again, you're going to want to try to fit this ball in, certainly before the safety gets there. Like, defensive pass interference is not what you're trying to draw, and it doesn't help anything that with Robinson settling right about there, the ball's actually going to come much more towards the safety, forcing Robinson to lean into it, which doesn't help him. It's not a good throw by Dalton. And this is one of those that you want cleaned up as soon as possible because, sure, don't get me wrong, should have probably been defensive pass interference. If not, it absolutely should have been defensive pass interference, but it's not as if this is a good throw that was broken up because it was just too good otherwise. It's actually, I would probably argue, a little bit late. Like, again, if we're looking at it just like this is that 3rd and 2 right after a couple of 4th down stops from the Bears, and right now Robinson has broken, the safety has broken on him because it's not hard to figure out on a 3rd down you're trying to throw to Allen Robinson, and Dalton has yet to release the ball. So because he doesn't exactly have a cannon that, another person on the team does, he ends up trying to lead Robinson. Again, don't know why you would lead Allen Robinson on a down like this. It's the line to gains right here, so just stick the ball on him. But he doesn't work. Bears punt. Not a call that they were lucky enough to get, but not a call that I think they should have needed on a play like that. It's not a layup. Nothing is against this Rams defense, but at the same time, again, I really don't want to scratch Dalton's back too much because he did not have a great game. I mean, what better example of that here is there than the Bears' first interception, which I want to go over, and then we'll go over a couple of other things on the drive. But so here we are, false start, and then it's interception time. You guys ready for this? It's not a super fun one. So the Bears are sitting here about, 8 yards off the line of scrimmage, and they've got Montgomery running a curl and Mooney running a slant and also a slant from Kmet, and I cannot remember what these two are doing over here because ultimately that's all I keep wanting to say Darnold, but Dalton is going to look at. So in this case, what you're going to see is the Bears give up some pretty quick pressure, which hurts, but I don't think Dalton's throw here is very good at all. So let's see. Okay, a friend of mine was right. All right, so let's walk through this. First thing I want you to watch is the line, I think. Line's not a bad place to start. We're all figuring this out. We're all walking through this. And E&B, I did notice some improvement. It was all in the run game, though. And maybe a little bit in the short game. But, again, I mean, in a game where you only throw deep, your deepest pass is a 13-yard attempt. It's not good. So we'll talk through it. The Rams were not trying to allow anything deep. I mean, this is a perfect example because it's 3rd down, but sure, but you've got all the defensive backs basically just gate guarding the end zone, as they should be. This is the modern way to play defense. But so Dalton is going to look to his left. Whitehair gets bullied here. He gives up quick pressure to, I think that's Aaron Donald, but we'll have to look back at the tape. And what you're about to see that really burns me up, I mean, look, not too much is going to make me truly angry about Dalton, but if you watch the trajectory of his throw, Dalton's throw seems like it's going to go about there on a straight line, and obviously you've got what is this? It might have been Peters. I don't know why I kept saying it Fady. In fact, it might not have even been Peters because I don't know when he quite got hurt, but it might have been Wilkinson. Either way, let's get back to this play. So Dalton throws way, way behind. I mean, like, look at where this ball is. Let's trace it. So this ball is going there. Mooney is obviously going there. So not a good throw either way. And the linebacker tips it. Obviously nice he didn't because it would have been a pick six the other way. But he gets a hand on it, tips the ball into the air. And the interception, that probably would have been an interception anyways because, again, that throw is not good at all, and it ends up getting picked. This is the kind of thing that, like, look, you pick your quarterback, right? Foles, Trubisky, Andy Dalton. It doesn't really matter. And so, Steven, you're saying that Kmet was open. I don't think Kmet was open. I think Mooney's the right read because you've got, like, you would have to jam this ball in, and I think that this defender would just step up right there. I think your best bet here on 3rd down is to try to get that ball. It'd be a difficult throw, don't get me wrong, but the open-est area of the field you're going to get is right there. Like a toe tapper here at the back of the end zone that you just don't see thrown in the Chicago uniform, but people will throw it against us here and there. Like, again, the open nest area. You probably, deep voice, if you took a sack here, you just ducked down and said, we'll take the 3 points. Obviously, that's a better result than what the Bears ultimately got here. But there's no bullet available, because if you try to bullet the throw in, you're going to have to deal with this person right here. If you try to send it too far wide, you've got this man. He's not in bad position, the nickel, so you can't necessarily throw behind him. I really think the best bet you're going to get is letting Mooney roll in and then fade backwards and try to catch this as he falls out of the end zone. But truth be told, that's the kind of throw that, again, I'm really not trying to hint it too much, but being very blunt with you guys, that's the kind of thing I would expect Justin Fields to attempt, not dissimilar to his throw to Jesse James in the preseason that James could have come down with, but it's not one that Dalton's made a habit of throughout his career. So Dalton throws it, it gets tipped, it goes badly. I mean, this is the kind of play that you can't have. I mean, does it take some kind of super smart analyst? Like, you can't have this, because especially opening drive, you get something that you want in the run game to get all the way down the field, and then your starting quarterback that is playing in place of your rookie makes a rookie mistake, and the Bears are suddenly, instead of being, let alone 7-0, 3-0, instead of that, you're not 7-0, 7-0 or 3-0, you're still tied. And then you ultimately give up a touchdown on the next drive. But that's the kind of thing that, like, you look at this, I don't think that this embodies Dalton's game, but this was the most impactful play Dalton made. Like, that's the problem here. I think you guys would agree with that. There were some quick game things. We even already went through a couple of them that Dalton did that weren't so bad, but his highs were low and his lows were very low. Does that make sense? He brought the floor up maybe a little bit. It's not as if he took 18 sacks or held onto the ball way too long. But again, deepest throw went 11 yards. There wasn't a lot to necessarily hang Dalton's hat on. And we'll go over maybe what I think is his best play of the game later in the show. But first, I want to back up. And again, somebody asked earlier, like, what were some improvements that we saw with the Bears? I loved what they did in the run game. I thought that they attacked the Rams very, very smart. So what they're going to do here, it's a simple thing that they worked on basically all last year, but one of their favorite recent schemes is running outside zone. So you're going to see everybody here on the offensive line step to their left and block somebody. And what I want you to focus on is Germain Ifedi, who you're going to see this lineman right here is going to try to penetrate into the backfield. The Rams love doing this. If they can get by you, they will. And so what the Bears are going to do, and namely David Montgomery, is turn that into a gap. James Daniels does a great job getting his man sideways as Germain Ifedi lets this guy go right on through. And when Darnell Mooney and the rest of this squad over here can't necessarily create a lane, Montgomery's going to do exactly what he made a habit of early in the season last year, cut straight into this hole and go make something happen. Number 11 done a much better job here, I think, but he ends up juked out of his shoes as Montgomery turns on the jets and races down the field a lot further and faster than I feel like we saw him do last year. I mean, I always thought Montgomery was like, okay, so I feel like I've caught some heat on Twitter for saying Montgomery's good, not great. This game, he looked great, no question. Like, spoonful of crow, serve it to me, because while he's always been an absolute deleter of defensive backs, like what he does to 11 here isn't that surprising. And I'd say 44 got caught over pursuing to get into the melee, but what Montgomery's able to turn it into is largely part of what the Bears offensive line did really well this game. Montgomery just roars on down the field for the yards. Really, really nice play. Here you can watch it from the end zone angle. And again, I want you to pay attention to James Daniels, who had a really nice game here. James Daniels is going to get all of his guy, send him just wide enough to make it work, and he just races out for the biggest gain of the night, by far. Yeah, he really was the one-man band, Derek. That's a good way to put it. So then you get to this famous two-play sequence with Bears run the same play twice, as we remember. Now, I think a lot has been made out of the fact that Graham and Ramsey are right here, but I can't tell because that's Jalen Ramsey, and he has to be pretty far back to not attack him. But Dalton's going to run this RPO very simplistically. Thank you, Wesley. Thank you for subscribing. Great to see you. I love it whenever that alert pops up. It's super fun. But so Dalton's going to read this RPO. I think this is his trigger man, but I can't quite remember. Either way, he hands it off, if memory serves. So he sees this, or he sees Goodwin get followed over here, who would normally be the orbit bubble, orbit motion being that when you go behind the quarterback. And he reads that the slot defender has gotten involved in the screenplay, and he's just going to hand it off. This is a nice reminder that the Bears' offensive line is not exactly going to push anybody out of the way, because here the Bears running outside or inside zone are going to they're going to do their best to create a hole, but Jason Peters has already lost his assignment to Aaron Donald, who's really, really good, and will likely do this to a whole lot of different linemen, but Damian Williams really doesn't have anywhere to go, so he goes down for, I think, gain of 1, maybe gain of none. Either way, you can watch Peters right here again as the Bears don't get much, or like Whitehair doesn't help much, not that he's trying to. Peters can't do much with him. John, thank you so much. Really, really kind of you to get involved. You have no idea how much that helps. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. But anyways, then Justin Fields comes in and they run the same play, which we suddenly realize that they actually have an alert on. So that means, in case anybody doesn't know football terminology, which, truth be told, some of it I'm still learning myself, an alert, that's, gracious alive, that's alert. So an alert is basically the concept of the quarterback at any point can tag somebody to do something else. So, or not that they can tag them to do something else. If they see a specific look, then the primary read of the play becomes something that you don't normally expect to be open. In this case, if you look at the difference between the last two plays, so let's mark it out so that I can see if I'm actually onto something here. Maybe Fields is just gutsy. But so Ramsey right here is standing on about the 9. And if you look at the play earlier, let's see, is it any different? He's standing about a yard further. Don't get me wrong. He's not, or it's not as if he's super duper close, but the Bears obviously saw that and they might have told Fields, hey man, just throw the ball. But either way, give Fields the credit that he deserves, because with Ramsey just a smidge further back and Goodwin where he is, I think that the alert tag on exactly the same RPO, with now Williams kicking out that way and the Bears still running inside zone up front, that kicks off, and oh no, it's just a straight up pass. You can tell because they're kind of pass setting, but maybe it's some kind of a zone thing that they're doing. Either way, Fields is going to get this out route. He gets immediate pressure on him by what looks like Aaron Donald and from James Daniels. One of probably Daniels' bigger mistakes of the game. Not that there were too many, but Fields sits in tough, delivers a nice little strike that Nagy called inside. Look, if you're splitting hairs, I guess the throw is a little inside. But either way, I just love watching Fields throw with the zip that comes on it. You could make a joke here about how Fields didn't get a ton of reps with the ones. Maybe didn't realize quite how quick Goodwin was going to be there. But either way, it's one of those where it's tough to get upset about it. You can pretend in this case that the Bears did, or you can pretend if you wanted to that Fields somehow threw this late, but ultimately he triggers about the same time Dalton would, waiting for exactly the moment that his receiver steps to break, which is exactly what he used to do in OSU. I would pull up the OSU field at this point or OSU film if you wanted to, but if you watch this, the big thing I want you to notice is that Fields likes to trigger his throws when he sees the break. It's kind of like see it, throw it, but the more see it, throw it stuff that I've seen if you're wondering what I'm referring to, this is what people used to say about Jay Cutler a lot, was that he would see somebody open and then he would throw it. Fields tends to, instead of throwing it before the guy breaks, he throws it as he breaks, where you're going to see him start that motion as the break comes out. So then the throw with a man in his face, first NFL passing attempt, is the greatest 9-yard completion in NFL history. Maybe Bears history at the very least. 9 yards, Bears get real close to a first down from there, and then obviously they take the false start. But either way, I mean, hey, it's fun to see Fields at all in these kinds of things. Jay, I don't think that they're bringing Fields in for arm strength. I think they're bringing Fields in as a faux run threat. So the key here on what I think Nagy's doing, and I can't bet anything right now, is that since Fields isn't the starting quarterback, that means defenses have to think through, okay, why is Fields in the game? Like, what's he doing here? And I think that means that you're going to see this line or this safety come downhill for exactly this reason, that the defense assumes he's there to do something involving the run game. So when he drops back to fully pass, he ends up kind of catching him off guard, not dissimilar to what happened with Trey Lance earlier in the day, like on Sunday. But either way, I'm glad to see Fields got a completion at all, because based on what we saw throughout this game, I do ultimately think Fields is going to be in the game fairly soon. I don't need anybody going out there placing bets or crossing fingers on my account. I don't want to pretend that I think Fields is starting immediately. But what I can tell you is that I do think Fields, especially if Dalton loses the next game against Cincinnati, is going to be coming in against Cleveland. And if Dalton wins it, Cleveland's going to just destroy him. And I think he'll be in by the Lions game. Now, if you follow me on Twitter, chances are you've seen that I've thought that Fields was going to play in week 4 for quite some time now, but a game like this really set that in motion, I think, because the defense obviously is not particularly good, and the Bears seem to know that, because going for it on 4th and 15, let's see if we can find it. They don't give me the down and distance in this, but the Bears made pretty easy work of getting anywhere. So the field flips. I think we're right about there. So this is the play that leads up to it. This 4th and 15 call was so beyond gutsy at this point that I have to imagine that Matt Nagy basically said, all right, if we don't score here, our defense is not going to get us many more stops, and the Rams are boat racing us. We've got to find something. This obviously isn't the 4th and 15, dadgummit. But yeah, this is what happens when they don't give you those nice little play triggers. So here's a sack. We can watch through this to see what happens. Again, if you asked me just off of one rewatch, that's not good. So Aaron Donald really messed up the Bears game. I mean, here's Aaron Donald right here. And one thing that you saw the Rams do all the time, they ran what's called a bear front. That's right, you heard it. It's called a bear front. So that's B-E-A-R, bear. And it's named for the Bears. It's actually named for, like, I think it's the 85 era Bears, but basically they had so many threatening pass rushers that they just lined up 5 on the line and played out of that. The Rams often played a tighter look than this. This is actually one of the wider bear fronts that they ran all game, but at this point, like, what they do it for is so that they can try to influence one-on-ones. You'll notice here that Mustipher has a one-on-one, Daniels has a one-on-one, Whitehair has a one-on-one with Aaron Donald, and 58 has a one-on-one on Elijah Wilkinson. I don't know why I call him Brad all the time. And then he steps off, so Ifedi's basically out of the play. And if you'll notice, Donald beats Whitehair pretty soundly. Dalton gets eaten up on this play, ultimately gets sacked. These are the kinds of things that, look, if we have to split the hair, Fields is going to be better at this sort of thing, because his quick jet to the outside might open up a running lane. You never know. Or he'd be able to extend the play. If we go take a look at what's actually going on in the play, let's see if anything would have been available anyways, just for fun. And yeah, you're going to see the occasional blurriness and weird color thing. This is all practically like a bootlegged recording from a VPN through Europe. But like you're saying, JC, you talked about whether you would have gone for it. I would have gone for it, or I don't know if I would have gone for it on 4th and 15, because I think I would have just been so upset we were in that situation at all. But the truth to me is that the game would have been over either way had the Bears gotten it, or had the Bears not gotten it. I do think it was over. So if Fields is able to, let's say Fields extends the play right here, if he gets out, suddenly you've got Fields with a potential running lane right here with somebody in man covering carrying up. So then you would have Fields with a one-on-one with this guy right here, and he could potentially play a two-man game with David Montgomery. I mean, look, there's a lot of things that Fields could do to this offense that have nothing to do with the play designs. So it's a matter of whether or not the play designs are there. And if you'll notice, so Donald gets this sack. Can you guys find the open man? This would be the part right about where he'd be throwing it. So see if you can take a look. Tell me in chat. Can you find it? Because I can. It's kind of funny to see this kind of play because it shows you that what Matt Nagy was saying about trying to get further downfield isn't lying. It's just, it wasn't easy for the Bears. Because here, I'll show it to you because I haven't seen it come through chat yet, but it may very well just be a latency issue. The Bears have basically run, I cannot remember what it's called for the life of me, but it's Mooney coming open. Yeah, exactly. So Mooney coming across the field right here with Allen Robinson coming up the field has basically put this safety in a bind where this is exactly the purpose of this play, is to set up these exact kind of no-win situations for the defense. But it is, if memory serves, it's called, no, it's not sail and it's not dagger, but I can't quite remember. I'll have to do more studying and get to you guys. But it actually might be scissors now that I think about it. It's just a two-man game right here to try to get something to bite. And with this safety shading over to deal with the two wide receivers right here, it opens up the over-the-middle thing. So if they had managed to, or if they had managed to hold on, if Cody Whitehair didn't get beat pretty much immediately, you've got that deep completion that everybody wanted to see. Bears at this point were at, I think, roughly the 12 or something. But yeah, Jordan, I may very well not be remembering quite what it's called. And it would have been open, but the offensive line could not hold on. And again, we'll watch it one more time from behind so that you can see it. But the Rams really just, my guess is that the Bears, deep stick makes a lot of sense. But by the way, Alessandro, yeah, I need to go back through my playbook, brush up on my route concepts and names. This is a book, Bobby Peters, who does a great job with a whole bunch of different offensive manuals. Another one that he did recently that I thought was really, really cool. If you're looking for book stuff, he diagrammed the 2017 Patriots passing game specifically. I thought that was really neat. Showed a lot of what Bill Belichick and John McDaniels do over there. Josh McDaniels, goodness gracious, Robert. But these one-on-one pass rushes really screwed the Bears up. And in this case, again, I would credit Ifedi as a one-on-one because normally you expect the interior to be the ones who are going to get that help. And another thing the Rams decided to do that, look, you guys can take this for what it's worth. Most people would have expected Aaron Donald to line up against Sam Mustipher, because I would argue he's probably our weakest offensive lineman in the interior specifically, and Donald was always going to be an interior player. But instead, the Rams consistently made the decision to line up Donald over Whitehair or Daniels. Whitehair having a terrible day in pass protection, and I think that's because they were so convinced that anybody else could beat Mustipher that they might as well have Donald on Whitehair to give them two shots at a big pass rush on every single play. That's just a guess because it would be it was a little strange to me that Donald, who normally ends up going up against that center guard combo, got so many one-on-one pass rushes against not the center. But hey, it worked because he tossed him aside immediately. Dalton, if you watch Dalton's footwork, I know we're just sticking to one play a little bit long here, but if you watch Dalton's footwork, he gets sacked when he hits the back of his drop. They know where this play's supposed to go. Oh, not quite, actually. It looks like it's, yeah, okay, so apologies. I did not see that clearly enough. What you're getting is Dalton fakes that throw right there, and at this point, he's supposed to turn back because he's just thrown the pump fake. It's kind of a fake screen look. This is where he's trying to look for Mooney, and the pressure's already there. He just takes the sack. I don't know quite why he tried to extend the play from the sack instead of just going down. That cost the Bears about an extra 4-6 yards, but it happens, I guess. And this is where then I think Kmet kind of drops this one. You guys make the call, but the Bears run. At this point, it's 2nd and 25, memory serves. So Dalton gets the ball there. Kmet does not come up with it. Now it's 3rd and 25, and the Bears are really in a bind. But so Peter V, a 4:15 what, if you don't mind me asking? Always ready to, or always more than willing to learn. Apologies. Yep. I think Kmet should have probably cut that too, Steven. So then they run another one, leaks out. Try to get something a little further downfield, but nothing absolutely crazy. Yes, it's a 4th and 15 later. We haven't gotten there yet. At this point, this is 3rd and 25. So let me take a look at this action here. Yeah, the Bears try to basically just stretch out this quarter's defense that they've been running all game, which is even further exacerbated by what's going on. But so you end up with Kmet catching the ball right there, picking up 10 yards-ish. And now let's get to the 4th and 15, which I actually haven't watched again. So this is going to be really fun. I know Matt Nagy said something about the corner influencing Mooney's route. I'm curious as to what he meant, because it was awfully strange to me that Dalton targeted a receiver that wasn't actually at the line to gain. But I wonder if the route just got influenced that way by what happened with the corner. We will see. So the Bears line up in a bunch set right here. They used a lot of motion. That was awfully neat to see, and they've gone max protect. So the Bears know they're going to need some time to get somebody down the field, and they have to do it against 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 defensive backs, not counting this guy right here. So they've got 3 receivers versus 6 defensive backs, which obviously means you're going to need something. And okay, I see what's going on. So what Nagy must have been talking about is the fact that when you watch this corner's drop, he plays this beautifully because he sits such that when Mooney breaks out, if Mooney was going to break out at the sticks, he was going to have to do it. Let's see. Okay. I see what's going on. My pen tool only works on a certain view. But so with the corner beautifully tracing the sticks right here, Mooney could have dropped in and then rushed out, like maybe straight into him, but instead he tries to just get what he can, which obviously is only about 13 yards. The throw it's tight, but it's 4th down, so you got to push the ball somewhere, and it doesn't end up working. And yeah, Jordan, that's Sale. It's a very standard concept, all things told, and it's one that I think Fields is going to really like because he loves putting the ball towards the numbers. Thank you, Curtis, for subscribing. Great to see you here, to see you jump on board, but ultimately not enough for the Bears. And Michael T, ultimately at the end of the day, so what you bring up something I think is really interesting. Michael T says that was an embarrassing loss. Too many mistakes on 4th down. Instead of punting, they went for it and turned it over every time. Honestly, I've got no issue with going for it, especially when you're on the opponent's 40. I personally don't think punting would have really helped this defense all that much. They didn't seem to give a darn whether or not they had field position. But instead, they just got to get it. I mean, you can't miss 4th and 2 and then 4th and 4 and expect to win. And especially considering that if Dalton doesn't make the play within the play, he's really not going to get much out of it. It was just not their day. But so the aggressiveness was fine. I mean, I really think that there are a lot of things that that the Bears did surprisingly well. Like, let's pick on another one. Like HEC. One thing that you mentioned is you mentioned whether or not it's embarrassing. I personally still thought, I'll say what I said at the top of the show, that the offense did better than I anticipated, which I didn't think that. I thought they'd struggle to score 10. Like, I had them predicted for 16 because I was hoping that Matt Nagy would surprise me, but kicking for it on the 30 and that interception in the end zone took away what coulda, shoulda, woulda been points and dropped them back down to 14. I wouldn't have been shocked at all if the Rams had held them to 10. They're a very good defense, or at least they were last year, but let's get back to this. That's the thing, Ian B. Surprisingly good doesn't mean they were good, because they weren't, and Dalton wasn't near good enough. But let's get back to this really quickly. So this was another thing that the Bears did really well. We talked earlier about creativity in the running game. So they started with an outside zone play, and ultimately you can blow up a lot of those with quick penetration, even though we just saw, for instance, that the Bears turned away Aaron Donald. But another thing that they really liked to do was to use a wham block from the tight end to try to push Donald out of the play. Here's Aaron Donald. I want you to watch this one, as what you're going to see is Peters is going to step out, Whitehair is going to pass Donald through and get to the second level, and Donald's actually going to get blocked out of the play by JP Holtz right here. So what you end up with is a beautiful, beautiful run that comes from a tight end just chipping enough of Aaron Donald right here, and Jason Peters getting a good enough block out there where Whitehair can square up his guy. Allen Robinson gets enough of the defensive back, and David Montgomery does the rest. I mean, this Bears running game did a lot of, basically what they did, if I was going to synthesize it down into a nugget to watch for, right, is that they kept the Rams defensive line on their toes as to where the blockers were coming from. They ran some inside zone, which looks more like, it obviously would depend. Somebody else in the comments will more than likely get up and tell me exactly what I'm drawing wrong. But inside zone can look a little more like that. Outside zone, let's say they were going to the right, would look more so, not Dalton, obviously he's not in the play. Outside zone would involve more sliding over, picking up who you could from there. But the Bears also ran a whole lot of trap. They pulled a ton of guys. They just kept Donald and the rest of the Rams defensive line a little confused onto where the guy was coming from. Because if it was outside zone, he'd be getting blocked by Whitehair. If it was inside zone, he'd be getting blocked by Peters. As it is, it's trap. He gets blocked by JP Holtz. It was the sort of thing that I look at and I say, I really liked this. I think that personally, again, it's not even like a hot take, right? I thought that if there was one thing that this game showed me, it's that if that right there was Justin Fields, he might have a decent running game supporting him. I don't want to pretend like it's going to be great, because I don't think the Bears' offensive line is the Saints' offensive line or something like that. But the run game looked well schemed enough that if Fields entered the game, I don't think that it would necessarily be all on his arm. And for a rookie quarterback, look, I don't think we can ask for incredible pass rush protection, so the next best thing is a decent enough run game to continue to leverage a play-action passing game, which you don't need a running game to leverage a play-action passing game, but it's never harmful. So somebody asked, why so many short routes? So the big reason that the Bears ran so many short routes is because the Rams started basically every single play in something that could very easily be quarters. Like if the Bears pushed every single receiver down the field right now, including Montgomery, they've got plenty of defensive backs with easy leverage to go pick those men up. And they never wavered from this. Even when the Bears got yardage on the ground, even when they pounded it enough to try to potentially draw somebody into the box, the Rams are so far ahead, they just didn't care. Like, they could play bend, don't break because they consistently had the lead and didn't need to act like they were in a hurry to do anything. So the Bears tried to stay patient with this by calling these short routes over and over and over. I mean, that's wide open, right? But the problem that they had, like the biggest issue, was that whenever they made a mistake and got behind the chains, they risked going into third down. And there are a couple of third downs that I want to walk through. We've got a lot that we can talk about on this show. So the more you ask questions, the more that the more that I can talk through what we're going to. We can do the defense later. But the big thing that I saw was that every time the Bears got into a third down situation, you saw Jalen Ramsey make a difference. I don't think the broadcast copy did a good enough job of highlighting just how impactful Jalen Ramsey was in this game, as he was able to basically take A-Rob away on most of their important downs. And if you remember, especially from any of you RPO veterans that have been with this channel for quite some time, you probably remember that third down going to Allen Robinson was like, I don't know, Donald Trump ordering a Diet Coke. Like, it was just something that happened all the time. Bears hit third down, Allen Robinson. 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 Like, they just loved Allen Robinson in that scenario, and Jalen Ramsey was able to eat him alive. Where the Bears were at their best was the Bears were at their best in scenarios where they could obviously convert a first down on second down. Like, they didn't do a whole lot of first down on first down, but what they were able to do is plays exactly like this one, where I think this one is a first down where they get 6 yards right here on the one that we just watched, and there's 96 going straight on through. I mean, again, like, if you watch this offensive line for too long, you're going to see some real problems as Whitehair on this play right here gets whipped by a stunt, and 96 roars straight on in. So then the next play, they look for Kmet on a slant. This was one of Kmet's better plays of the game, which easy enough. And the Bears' offensive line, like, it continues to give a lot of pressure. Like, it's the Rams, and they played 5 rushers for the overwhelming majority of the game. But even so, you're going to see Mustipher right here completely lose his footing. You can already see he's off balance and get thrown way back. Rob Ogborn, thank you so much. So unbelievably kind of you to jump on in and become a member. You guys have no idea. If I could just set things aside for a second, I would love to do this kind of thing full time. I would love to pour just so much time and energy into creating, whether it's Little Bears videos, full Bears breakdowns, and so on and so forth. Every little bit helps. Thank you so much. Go Bears. But so anyways, keeping going. You can see that Mustipher's given up yardage here, but the ball came out so quickly that it made things look better than it was. Like, 2 Bears linemen on this play, if memory serves, end up right there on the ground, because Jason Peters tries to pick this guy up, and he gets thrown to the ground. Whitehair gives up pressure, so that's like 3 plays where Whitehair gave up pressure on the last one, Mustipher gave up pressure on this one. The Bears got some completions because they were playing those short yards. Like, I think a lot of why the Bears weren't throwing downfield is they didn't trust their offensive line, and their offensive line didn't give them a reason to trust. When they tried to use play action, the Rams used a lot of blitz, and the trouble with these short throws is you got to be perfect. Like, you got to be perfect or else it goes wrong. And on this play right here, the throw is just a little too far out wide. It's not a good ball by Dalton, who's not a crazy accurate quarterback, but I think Dalton's just trying to shade him away from this defender right here. Maybe Allen Robinson could have caught that. Like, I'm not about to say it's the hardest catch in the world, but at the same time, when you throw like 37 short routes, you're going to deal with drops. You're going to get Kmet dropping a ball. You're going to get Allen Robinson having a ball glance off of his chest. And oh my word, Mustipher gave up pressure again. Like, goodness gracious. If you watch this right here, like, this hurts. So Mustipher there gets beat, and he's well handled. The Bears are throwing short for a reason in this case, and Peters is on the ground, fortunately. But So Robinson gets the short ball. I think this one glances off his chest. Bears are lucky it didn't get picked. It's not that bad a throw, but it's not super easy, I guess. And then the Bears tried to get a little more involved with the running game. But again, if you asked me, just trying to think like Matt Nagy, dangerous. Don't think like Matt Nagy too much. I think that Matt Nagy came into this game not realizing that the run game would work as well as it did. Like, they'd tried so many different things over the last 3 years that had not worked. I don't think they expected to walk in with a surprisingly decent running game, and plays like this didn't exactly help him. So, like, here, the Bears are running another inside zone play, and you're going to see there's just nothing there. Mustipher does not move his man. That's consistent. Like, I could show you a whole bunch of these plays that are like, Mustipher. You don't need to see that. Like, you'll see enough. But so, inside zone plays were not the Bears' bread and butter. They buttered their bread on outside zone. They buttered their bread on wide zone. They buttered their bread on trap. And they ran inside zone occasionally, but you saw a lot more. This might have very well been an RPO, because like I said, they just ran a bazillion of them. But so, watching this, it very well could have been, but you've got, maybe it's zone read, but chances are Dalton sees this guy right here who's going to run in and just impact the play, and there's no reason to get that ball to the sidelines, so they hand it off, take what they can. E&B, when do I think the Bears championship window is? I don't want to scare anybody. I think it's 2023 and beyond, which, here's the timeline, right? 2021, Fields' first season. 2022, the retool season. This is when I wouldn't be surprised, depending on how things go, if Matt Nagy, namely Ryan Pace, doesn't make it to 2022. And maybe he does, and the Bears try to compete in 2022. But that 2023 and beyond season, like third year, take a look at what's going on with the Cardinals right now. Not everybody's Mahomes, not everybody's Deshaun Watson, but Kyler Murray, incredibly talented quarterback, has clearly taken his third-year step as he and that offense just styled on Tennessee. Maybe I'll eat those words later, but Kyler had a phenomenal game. And so, we'll see what happens. And exactly like you're saying, Brandon, like if the Bears do lose a bunch of games this year, honestly, that might not be an issue, because that makes it to where a new GM could come in with the prospect of already having your quarterback in place. And they could, you could then woo a head coaching prospect from there, and so on and so forth. It's for Bryson. I sure hope so. About whether or not they're going to be aggressive for offensive linemen, I don't expect the Bears to just sit on their laurels and let Fields get hit. I don't think that that's anybody's plan. You're going to see another quick little pass right here. The offensive line giving up pressure very quickly. And again, Whitehair is getting faded already. You can see him already. He's lost his balance, getting over here, so on and so forth. Then Dalton chucks it out to the sidelines. Damian Williams gets what he can, but if memory serves, this is a third down, and the Rams have just covered it up well, because the Rams, to the Rams' credit, they just this was their whole game plan, y'all. They rush 5 people, and they play 6 men back. 5 men back with 1 sitting in the middle, sometimes 2. But so the reason that I point this out is because all they were really trying to do at this point was that they were just trying to eliminate deep shots and basically say, you can have anything here. You want to throw it to Kmet there? Fine. You want to throw it to Robinson? Sure. Goodwin? Why not? Allen Robinson, I'm going to take him away so that your quarterback has one read he has to make, but you want to kick it out to Damian Williams? Go for it. There he is, and you get your 7 yards, and then they clap for you. They say, way to go, Bears offense. It's 4th down. Punt it to us. It wasn't the worst game plan, because the Bears were attacking the proper area of the field that's soft underneath. They just didn't do it well enough, and their offensive line did not help, because they really didn't end up with the time to do much more than that. But they've got to eventually find ways to go deep, and that's the sort of thing that, this play is frustrating. So I saw this one. Sorry, I got really distracted. So here what you're going to see is that they scheme up a free runner on 4th down. So the Bears turn away. I don't know who missed the mic call, but you actually see that they just had another 5-man blitz, again, and they come straight through, get somebody free running at the quarterback. Dalton has already decided that he's going to Allen Robinson, for better or for worse. He's decided that he's going to target this because in his mind, Dalton used to do this all the time in Cincinnati and in Dallas. What he did was he would kind of decide, okay, so Kmet's going to run this way, and this defender is going to come down here, and that's going to open this player, and Allen Robinson has a very, very, very tiny little window to just jam the ball in. So the Bears actually ran the same play 4th down to Trubisky, and then Trubisky, if you remember, he broke out of the pocket, ran down the sideline, stepped out of bounds on 4th and 2. But so it's not a play that the Bears have never run, and frankly, if the throw's a little better, Robinson could probably make the catch. I would even argue he could make the catch there because he's so strong at contested catches over time. But Kmet's wide open. Kmet's right there. He's so open. I'm shocked that I'm really, really, really surprised that Dalton didn't end up throwing to Kmet, purely because, if you're talking a 2-yard line to gain, he's already there. So you could just kick the ball, or you could kick the ball right to him, and while Allen Robinson might have come up with this catch, and even further might have if the ball was on the proper shoulder, the ball's behind him, so Robinson's having to reach back for it, but it's frustrating. I mean, Ian B., I think you put it properly. The trouble here is that Dalton was brought in to be the veteran that made the proper read and made the proper throw and ultimately supported the offense. In this game specifically, Dalton made too many mistakes to not play Fields, in my personal opinion. Now, I'm not in the practice room. I don't know where Fields is at. But according to the glowing reviews, according to David Montgomery saying he's just got an aura, man, and Jesper Horsted saying that's the Justin Fields effect. What can I tell you? And Bill Lazor even coming out today and saying Justin Fields. I mean, hey, I think he's ready to go, but you'd have to ask somebody else. Like, I'm pretty sure that Lazor even said outright something along the lines of like, Matt's made his policy on quarterback pretty clear. So I think he's good to go, but not my decision. Like, hinted at it at the very least. But at this point, like, Dalton didn't do enough to justify it. Jay, I think you're right. Like, I'm not trying to be overwhelmingly negative here, but Nagy is at risk of the locker room turning on him for the first time in his career, which it's shocking given what they've been through, the 6-game losing streak, et cetera, that the locker room hasn't turned on Nagy before. That's always surprised me that he's been able to keep the locker room together, but instead, I personally think that that's the reason that I've been doing the whole doomsday clock thing on Twitter. If you've been following me, I have a feeling Fields is coming in sooner than we expect. Like, especially if I'll draw it up right here, just easy. If the game at halftime, the Cincinnati game is 3 or 6 to, let's say 13 or 17, don't be surprised if Fields comes in the game. Like, if the Bears are not scoring on a you get the idea. If the Bears aren't scoring enough against Cincinnati, who has a much softer secondary than the Bengals do, like, it's probably time for Justin Fields. And hey, I have to say this, like, this is so important. Trevor Lawrence did not play exceptionally. Zach Wilson, I thought, really struggled. Mac Jones might have looked the best of the rookie quarterbacks, all things told. Like, Lawrence looked the prettiest. I thought Jones looked the most efficient, if you don't count Lance, because he didn't start. And the best they scored was 16 points. Like, I don't want to suggest that Fields coming in equals the offense exploding. If it does, I'm going to be breaking down the whole thing with a smile on my face, because that's not supposed to happen. And maybe Nagy's trying to kind of help Fields get his rookie jitters out by giving him these rare snaps here and there. I don't really know. Like, this Nagy, Fields can come in and Fields can pass the ball, but he can also not pass the ball, and so maybe he'll run it, maybe he won't thing is kind of new. Like, normally I've only seen the rookie quarterback coming in and run it, not unlike Taysom Hill. But it's interesting. One guy I want you to watch, I don't want to spend too much time on defense, but Alec Ogletree really struggled. Like, here you've got Ogletree getting absolutely hosed over the middle. Eddie's doing a decent job of protecting his half of the field right here. Marquis Christian even on his guy right there. But Alec Ogletree got absolutely roasted. If the throw was better, he'd still be running. I want to point out the defensive stuff where I can. In this setting, the Bears actually get their one-on-one. Okay, so I have to say something. By the way, Flat Horizons, thank you so much for saying you love the channel. I love you guys. But so let's see. Michael, I want to cover, funny you ask, like, I want to cover a lot of teams, but at this point, it's just the Bears. If you want me to cover your team, you let me know what team it is, and I'll see what I can put together. And the closer you guys get me to doing things full time, the closer I get to doing a whole bunch of things. Like, I want to analyze football more, but you guys, you know how it goes. And I know how it goes for you, so don't hear that as pressure. But anyways, we need to have a moment of silence for Khalil Mack, because in a game where Aaron Donald seemingly won all of his one-on-ones, and in a game where Akeem Hicks, when he got the chance, pressured Stafford eventually, in a game where Robert Quinn made things happen, Mack did not. And Mack is $30 million on the cap. So Mack is being paid 2 times what Quinn is. Mack is being paid Eddie Jackson plus Akeem Hicks, and Mack is more than that. If you added together Mario Edwards, Eddie Jackson, and Robert Quinn, I think you finally get like $1 million more than Khalil Mack's number on the cap hit, which hurts. Like the trouble, Haesung, is that I don't get the impression Mac is particular. I think he lost a little bit of his speed as he's gotten older. Even when he gets one-on-ones, he tends to take these wide angles that you'll see 79 take right here. And then 79 can sort of just wash him out of the play. And you can call that holding if you want, but that's happened to Mac his entire life. Like there's no point where that is going to get called. It's become a standard block for offensive linemen, and it ends up allowing something. I mean, you could look at a whole bunch of these at this point, and you will see play after play after play that Khalil Mack looks dangerous. I mean, in this case, he gets chipped, but Aaron Donald's out there affecting everything. Like, he's affecting everything. And that's the thing, Alessandro. I wouldn't be mad at him either. Like, I don't think that mad is the right word. I'm just bummed because his contract is so long that the Bears defense, as it is getting older, doesn't have a solution for a pass rusher that isn't producing too much. Like I think that's the struggle that I'm really having. Like Eddie Jackson's hit and miss. I hope we get to a play that I wrote down because I can't remember where it is, where Eddie Jackson does his job beautifully. Like Eddie Jackson's still a good safety. He just has these brain farts on like 20% of plays that lead to huge plays, and he's not a good tackler. So you end up with, he's so expensive, you don't want him to make those mistakes, but while he's talented, it's just got to get cleaned up. I mean, so the Rams ran some quick game here and there too. Like the run play that they ran right here, this one was kind of hilarious because I feel like it was sort of just a botched play. You can tell Quinn has trouble with kind of just over anticipating everything. Like in this case, Quinn's watching the running back. He's not watching Matthew Stafford. And so I don't think that the plan here with all the linemen blocking this way is to not hand the ball off. My guess is that Stafford just yoinked the ball because he knew Quinn was about to just destroy him. Like this is a full guess on my no other reason that Stafford would. No, maybe it is just a naked boot. That is wild. And yeah, Quinn just misses him. He doesn't see it coming. He runs straight by Stafford. I mean, it's like just like it all got drawn up. That's one thing. I have to tip my hat to Sean McVay. Sean McVay did a great job. I want to walk through a lot of what he did. I hope you've seen a lot about the Rams defense. The Rams defense is dangerous because with Jalen Ramsey, there's not a lot you can do to attack them easily downfield because Jalen Ramsey's always lurking, always ready to make a play. And on offense, man, their play caller is talented. Like, here's a good example of where the Bears actually got some pressure. Guess what? You won't believe it. It's number 94. It's number Rule of Three himself. It's number my most popular video that immediately embarrassed me. Isn't that how it goes? But so I actually think it's a little easier to see from the wide angle. You're going to see Quinn right here attack, get inside, and create pressure that ultimately hits Stafford. Like, solid. That's a very normal run. But so you end up, and part of it, Reinhardt, exactly like you're saying, getting a little distracted. One of the bigger differences between Mac and Donald is that, yeah, Donald's got less of a distance to go. But so even then, if you watch Khalil Mack on this play right here, he just feels a little slower off the edge. He's not necessarily winning a bunch of hand battles. I can't help but say I feel like he just looks a little older. Like, again, it's not even hard to see coming. It's just he looks like he's not quite as quick as he used to. This is a beautiful play, like on defense. If there's something to look forward to, it's what does happen when things go well. So here you've got Eddie Jackson in the prototypical safety role, and what I want you to really watch here is Marquis Christensen's about to get absolutely burned. So Marquis Christensen is playing sort of outside leverage, but so the wide receiver out here, like, is going to run a post over the middle, and that would be wide open because this wide receiver is going to break. He's going to use an outside release to get down the field and just try to open up this pocket, right? So, like, he's trying to throw right here as Eddie Jackson sinks back. A lot of safeties, Tashawn Gibson included, would never have a chance at beating this. Alec Ogletree is in a standstill. You can see, like, the entire space that's going to get cooked up. But guess who saves the play? Believe it or not, it's Eddie Jackson. Like, Eddie being able to break on the ball like he does spooks Stafford, who's seen him at his best enough to get involved in this play and force Stafford to just sort of take the shot downfield. And Stafford didn't miss many throws. This was the closest he came to missing one that wasn't perfect. I mean, it's not a super high percentage throw. But that's not, I think, where the play is designed to go. Stafford just looked at it, saw Eddie in good enough position, and walked away. It was one of the fewer stops that the Bears really got here on third down. So we like it, but it gets harmed by later in the game as Eddie starts to give up more. But I think you guys all watched the game. You know, you lived through it. But yeah, I mean, it's... the Eddie Jackson thing's hard to talk about too, because he's a good player, but he's just a little inconsistent. And at safety, especially, you need that consistency. You crave that consistency, and they just aren't really getting it. But so let's see how many times the Rams punt. I think they punt once. Both teams only punted once, if memory serves. But so, like, let's talk about a little more. Let's see. We can go through a whole lot of things. We can talk through coverage gaffes. We can talk through more offensive stuff. I love this crack design. So this is a perfect example of a play that went badly that I actually love the design of. It's very Shanahan McVay. Like, let's see. Oh, man, I have to ignore this, Alessandro? Oh, that's a bummer. I love those kinds of comments. But so, anyways, the Bears here are taking a lot of cues from the best run designers in football. And that's going to sound, what's the word? Highfalutin, but I really mean it. One thing that you've seen McVay and Shanahan do all the time is they get their wide receivers involved on run plays. So on this play right here, for instance, you're going to see a crack toss. So that is where basically Dalton's going to try to toss it right here as these wide receivers crack down on everybody that gets involved in the play. So it kind of feels like outside zone blocking in this direction to open up a hole where when Jalen Ramsey penetrates towards the runner, ideally you wash everybody here out of the play and you make it a one-on-one in this lane right here with this safety. This is what a lot of people have done. But if you watch this, you're going to see Damiere Byrd for not the first time in this game just whiff his block. So Kmet comes over there, and Damiere Byrd right there just doesn't get enough of the crack and ends up with Whitehair, who's trying to circle around him to take the first guy coming to him, probably him, with Kmet racing out in front to go get the safety. Whitehair gets pushed out of the play by Jalen Ramsey, and there's nowhere for Damian Williams to go. The design isn't bad. The execution does not work. Does that make it a good play call? Not necessarily. Like, I don't want to do that dance again. But the point is, Jalen Ramsey had a huge impact on this game. This play and other plays like it being a good example of it, as he, as a cornerback, just felt unbeatable. Like, you didn't beat Jalen Ramsey basically just about ever, as in this case, he absolutely annihilates this block, blows an offensive lineman out of the play, and all of a sudden, because this is how running the ball works, right? You have to find a way to get, to basically try to get a man on a man. And once Whitehair's out of the play, Ramsey has occupied two people. Mustafa's supposed to go get this guy, he's on pace. Kmet's supposed to get this guy, he's on pace, and that leaves this defender one-on-one with this defender kind of having the momentum advantage. And it doesn't work. And Curtis, it's funny you say that. Like, I completely agree with you and Reinhardt saying, like, what in the world is coach thinking? But, I mean, again, this is the kind of thing that McVay has done all the time. In his case, he used Josh Johnson back in the day. By back in the day, I guess I mean last year, to just sort of come over. All he's got to do, really all Byrd has to do on this play, let's watch the tight angle one more time. Like, maybe you put Allen Robinson there for those who are asking, but Allen Robinson's not a particularly willing blocker either. Oh gosh, it isn't Byrd. It is Robinson. Oh, that hurts. Now that hurts, because this is Robinson, and Robinson doesn't get near enough of him. Robinson's even 6'1", so that doesn't help anything. So all that stuff I said about Byrd, like, he does it later, but he doesn't get enough in that setting, and hooray. But so Yeah, Robinson, not an ideal blocker. A lot of the things that, McVay and Shanahan want to do involve wide receivers that block and run the ball, and the Bears don't really have those. I would say their best receiver is probably Allen, like right here, but their best blocker is Darnell Mooney, who's like 175 pounds. Like it's hilarious watching Mooney block because he gets really into it. He loves at least, he's a willing blocker would be the way that I would put it. That's all I try to do when I talk about tight ends and wide receivers. Zach Ertz, not a willing blocker. Jimmy Graham, not a willing blocker. Cole Kmet, he's willing. Darnell, he's willing. So you can get involved there. At this point, let's keep watching because, here's where the Bears, this is probably the Bears' best offensive play of the day, which I think is hilarious. And Chicago, their TOP was great. They had the ball for 35 minutes. So the Bears run this little like curl along with a post right here. They got a lot of this stuff open because they could throw it to Mooney for yak right here too if they wanted to. But Dalton's able to get the ball out because the Bears' offensive line held a little bit, and Marquise Goodwin makes a play. And Goodwin he's probably the Bears' best player on offense, honestly. Like, it's kind of sad to say it, but he was. Even he made his mistakes. He did not have a perfect day, but he was good enough. And this was as close as the Bears' offensive line, by the way, got to, like, good pass protection. But so here you get Mustipher holding his own, everybody in yet again another one-on-one setting. For those who looked up the blitz numbers, because I saw somebody who said that they blitzed 15 times and another person who said they blitzed 9 times. I tend to think that doesn't include 5+ man rushes. I don't know, you'd have to check, but they put 5 guys on the offensive line. Like, you've seen 5 on the OL almost every single time. But so at this point, they get the ball out because they've given him time to do it, and Goodwin's able to make a play on it. Which, the reason that I want to point that out is because the number one key that I've seen, simple as it sounds to offense, is that if you can pass protect, if you can give your quarterback time, most coverage units can't hold forever. And whenever the Bears had time, they made a much better play than when they didn't. And Fields should be able to get you more time eventually, even if he's just running out of bounds or like running around. If Fields is able to create time, whether it's in the pocket or outside the pocket, that'll open up a lot more for the offense than just standing there and having to get the ball out in a second and a half and 2 seconds. This is a beautiful play. I want to talk about this one. I think this one's interesting because if it was a 49ers play, I think it goes very, very differently. But Justin Fields is basically able to, let's see. Somebody said something about courtesy. Let's see. Yeah, Curtis, I'm trying. But so the Bears run an end around here, which I think is really interesting because it gets everybody on the Rams defense flowing. I posted this on Twitter if you've seen it. And while this is a tough play for Goodwin, I can't help but see the fact that the Bears have a nice little inside channel that while the Rams have defended it really well to the outside, you could run this play up the field and get a solid gain out of Goodwin. I think chances are Ramsey comes over and makes the hit, but ultimately they're going to lose 2 yards. This was one of those classic plays that Nagy got clowned for on Twitter, where I look at and I'm like, I don't hate the end around idea. It kind of maybe worked, but obviously the players didn't execute it the way that I would like to think they could. Here's the lane. So James Daniels is going to block off this guy. They're going to leave this one out of the play. Montgomery's coming over to help wherever he can. There's no way Peters gets to Jalen Ramsey. I can go back and show you that again if you want. But so Goodwin takes the outside lane because that's just what speedy people do. And there you go. It's Bryson. We might. Like you talked about, whether we're going to run a Ravens offense with Fields. We don't really know what they're going to do with Fields because he's not playing. I do think that Matt Nagy and the rest of the offense is going to change a couple of things here and there. But I do think that offers them a lot of more creativity in the run game because your quarterback can run the ball that they just wouldn't even attempt with Dalton. Why would they? But so John, I don't blame you for feeling that way. Again, one of the biggest problems. So Jordan, you know your stuff. Like, there's a whole bunch of things. Good to see you, Don. Great to see you subscribe. Thanks so much for jumping in. But so, this is the end around look. Like, this is Fields even. So this is quote unquote the run guy. And you've still got all four guys way off the line of scrimmage, including Jalen Ramsey now in the slot, just sitting there waiting for something. There are plays that you can run to beat this. Like, you can have Cole Kmet burst off the line, run a deep dig to try to occupy this safety, and have you can have Goodwin then run like an in and out route. In fact, we're going to get to something similar like that, where you can try to beat quarters with things like this, but you need protection to do it. And that's where the Bears really struggled in this game. I don't think they trusted their line. And I don't think they had a great reason to trust their line. So they didn't try anything. And feel free to ding them for it. I mean, they scored 14 points. It wasn't some titanic offensive performance. There were things to like in the run game, but it didn't turn into points. You need it to turn into points to get credit for anything. We're just going through the all-22 as it stands, and you get the idea. But so, with that sort of thing in mind, I just say all that because it's worth mentioning that there were the occasional time that the Bears tried to take the deep shot. There were even further times that the Bears tried to get the ball further down the field. The trouble is that great to see Intensify. Thanks so much for subscribing and hopping in. As this sort of thing progressed, the Bears' inability to get down the field just meant it was a matter of time before they got choked out. Here is a play where Damiere Byrd ends up getting absolutely destroyed on his blocking assignment. He's going to try to take Ramsey out on an RPO where this guy, I believe, pinches in. Let me see it again just to be absolutely certain. Yeah, so he hesitates, and because he hesitates, that means that they want to try to get the screen out because they've got a 2-on-2 out here where they can try to make something work. But Byrd is going to get destroyed by Jalen Ramsey, who's just this absolute machine. I mean, a friend of mine called him the perfect corner. It's hard to disagree. Jalen Ramsey is so unbelievably good. And the Bears tried to trust RPOs to basically carry the overwhelming amount of weight for them. But just about whenever they lost yards, they really struggled to get it back. And here, it's the one fuzzy play of the recording. I apologize, but you're going to have to deal with a little bit of fuzziness because this is the one where the Bears actually tried to run an in paired with a double move to see if they could create some space going up the field. This is a 3rd and long, and the line actually does not hold poorly. So this is a 4-man rush. You can see that they pulled off a stunt right here if you can pick out these pixels. And Dalton's got a decent pocket. This safety is occupied, and as this play progresses, here you've got George Roy, great to see you. Thanks for jumping in. You've got Darnell Mooney bursting up the field where he could theoretically get a throw within this channel. But I think because of Ramsey being who Ramsey is, Dalton opted to just throw the curl outside. I'm not about to say, again, blame him, don't blame him, but this was as close as the Bears got to an open deep shot. There was just not much there. And they tried this double move. We obviously talked about the deep stick play where they had some space. But if it's not Ramsey, I think that, especially if the guy's any further back, I do think Dalton, who looked in this direction, just chucks the ball down the field. But, I mean, we'll see. A lot of it comes down to whether or not the Bengals are as good, or whether they're good. Can the Bengals defensive backs hold off the Bears? That's a good question. Their defensive line should be able to attack the Bears fairly effectively. I don't see why they wouldn't. But then again, the Rams did the same. The Bears were able to generate some yardage. Maybe not a ton, as we saw, but if they can move the ball all right against the Rams, I would certainly hope that they would be able to do so against the Bengals. We will see, though. Nagy's seat's warm, if you ask me. His trust level is low. He's got to show something against against a weaker defense. Mike Lurodius, no, I just butchered that, didn't I? It's Luroitis, I hope. Thanks for jumping in. But so, what you're going to see here, this is a 3rd down, and this is really important because this is where I expect the Bears' offense to get better. In this case, you've got Allen Robinson manned up on Jalen Ramsey. And this is normally their bread and butter. It's like a 4th and 2, if memory serves, and you're going to get there. Like, you're going to get a little wiggle route and in as Allen Robinson tries to generate some space between him and Ramsey, and he just can't. Like, Ramsey locks down Allen Robinson. He basically did so all night. And Dalton does what he can to go through this read. Like, credit to him. He goes Robinson to the middle of the field to outside. And if he had any time, like, this is one that I don't blame Dalton so much for, because Robinson gets blanketed. You can even see him just getting absolutely covered up right there. Mooney's covered. David Montgomery's wide open. Like, David Montgomery is exactly the player who should be getting this ball. It's not a bad 4th down call. The trouble is that if you see what happens from the offensive line's perspective, Whitehair and Peters get wrecked. Like, there's not a lot of ways to say it. Donald gets straight through Whitehair. Peters is giving up he's hoping that Dalton's a little shallower or can step up into the pocket, but there's just nothing for him to step up into. If we watch this from behind the end zone camera, we're going to see much the same as Whitehair gets ripped straight through right there. Peters takes a little bit too interior of an angle, but again, if Donald isn't bearing down on him, pun intended, Dalton could theoretically step up, try to make a play, but Dalton just gets there a little too late. The fumble comes out, and the rest is history. But so let's see, taking a look at the chat again. I'm always having to wait for things to come through. Let's see. Yeah, I guess to me, Jay, it's interesting. Like, I have, the way that I would put it is, because you're talking about Nagy versus Pace. So for the rest of the chat, there's plenty of evaluations about your head coach. Like, is your head coach good? Is they not good? Et cetera, et cetera. And I can't help but feel like, obviously, you got the Kyle Shanahans of the world. Like, they're very good. If I had to rank Matt Nagy right now on a scale of offensive confidence, probably have somewhere around like 22nd in the league. The trouble is that I'm a lot lower on Pace than I am on Nagy. So whether Nagy gets fired isn't of consequence to me, because the Bears at this point, they have so many problems on defense. Like, I'll let some tape roll and we'll see it. Like, you can't necessarily play defense with a defensive line that can't get much pressure and a defensive coverage unit that can't seem to cover anybody. And in this case, the Rams get like 13, 14 yards off of a screen and so on and so forth. But so you get the idea. Like, it's trouble because, like, and yeah, Ian B, you're exactly right. If Pace is gone, if Pace is gone, I think Nagy's gone too, without a doubt. But so, and exactly like you're saying, Jordan, I don't necessarily think that the structure change would annihilate Justin Fields. I really don't think it should be a focus or a problem. But getting back to brass tacks, because Joe asks, like, do I support Nagy? Since I've been doing this to talk about how the plan's great, the execution's bad. At the end of the day, the head coach has to own the results. Like, just because the plan is very Sean McVay, Shanahan-esque. It's modern. There are a lot of designs that I like. Doesn't mean that the Bears are running them well. And so at the end of the day, the points are what matter. And while I don't love the Bears' talent, while I would be really intrigued to see just how much Sean McVay would really be able to do with Nick Foles and a backed up offensive line, or in this case, Andy Dalton, and you get the idea, with basically the team that the Bears have, there is no question in my mind that there are better coaches out there. I just see the plan, and as a football fan, think that there are designs that they're running that are almost objectively not bad designs. They're not even terrible designs necessarily against the coverages that they're called, but the execution's poor enough that it does have to eventually come back up to it does eventually, the buck has to stop somewhere, and that's where I personally think that Matt Nagy has to own things. I love the idea of an offensive coach, Jordan. I do disagree a little bit there. I get having a defensive coach, but I guess I just still look at the offensive lean of football and think to myself that an offensive coach might be helpful there. You don't necessarily want to lose your offensive coordinator, but if they figure something out there, then great. But as you can see, there were some of these plays. Look at this. This is beautiful. This is something gorgeous that the Rams just the Bears didn't have a counter for in this case. What you're about to see is a beautiful little rollout play, and the Bears tried a couple rollouts. We can go over those if you want to, but so what you're going to see is a rollout where I think Mac pinches in, so Stafford's just totally on his own, and the Rams are going to run a natural pick with number 12 coming over here, 10 blocking a little bit, and then just picking Jalen Johnson. Like, look at this. This is, in my opinion, this is gorgeous. Like, so he fakes it, and right there, you're going to see Cooper Kupp, I think it is. Watch what he does to Jalen Johnson. Jalen's not in bad coverage right now. Now he is, because there's nothing he can do. The Rams run a man gorgeously right into the corner's path and free him up for a very, very open throwing channel as Stafford just plucks it right on through, makes it very, very easy. So there you go. Like, I do think Dabble makes a lot of sense. It's Bryson. I'm worried that Dabble's almost too obvious that you end up with I don't know, something going poorly. But then again, I ultimately think that the talent level on defense has got to, or defense and offense has got to improve a little bit. So you get the idea. Like, the point is that I watch this defense and I keep seeing the defensive line. Like, here's Akeem Hicks bursting through again. I think it's Hicks. It might even be, it's Hicks. And, oh gosh, watch Alec Ogletree on this play. So you're going to see Bears man. I thought Roquan was fine. He kind of like Eddie Jackson had some moments where I didn't think he looked amazing. But at the same time, he didn't look bad. There are too many defenders that looked bad to really pin anything on Roquan. I want you to look here at Alec Ogletree because Akeem Hicks right here is going to get some pressure. Bears run a four-man blitz right here as he presses on through. Tonga does look like a steal out of the 7th round, and watch this tackle attempt. So Stafford is jumping backwards, trying to get back. Like, he's trying to just get the ball out. Don't take a sack here. That's all Stafford's thinking. And as he catches the ball, somehow Alec Ogletree has just swooshed right behind him, fans on the tackle, and Darrell Henderson gets to the 2. Like, look at this thing. Look at this. So Stafford just gets the ball out, and Ogletree runs straight by him. It was a rough game for Alec. Like, not that was not good, in my opinion. Ryan Day would be interesting. Hey, that's the play where you just pull Fields' head coach out. But yeah, I mean, I don't know about the college coach thing. I think I'm just scarred from Urban Meyer at this point. I don't know. I think it's Bryson. You asked how fans would feel if we got Eric Bieniemy. I think fans would hate it. Like, it's so funny talking about that. But just because I think a lot of fans are done with the Reed Tree thing. I wouldn't hate it. I think Bieniemy's a solid coach, but I do think that the fans would not, like, the fans at large would just not have a good time with it. Here's a surprisingly solid play by Eddie Jackson as he sticks his nose right into the grindy game and pushes enough guys back along with Jeremiah Atacho to force Darrell Henderson outside here, and then Jalen Johnson and Alec Ogletree make a nice little play to stop him. Like, if you watch this again, Atacho's probably doing the yeoman's work as he pushes this whole thing in, gets a great shoulder on this tight end, but Eddie Jackson helps out. He pushes straight through there, forces him outside. Johnson had a really nice game. Like, I personally thought that Jalen Johnson played really well overall. He was probably the Bears' best defender, if you asked me. Like, credit to the young kid. The young sophomore. He played, again, like a stud. Did he look like Jalen Ramsey? He did not. Did he look like a CB1? Yeah, he did. And the Rams ultimately just didn't attack him like they attacked other people. Like, he didn't give up near enough stuff, whereas other people did. Reinhard, I ultimately don't necessarily... It's trouble to talk about hubris with Matt Nagy because he's definitely got an ego. Like, it's very, very easy to see. It's Bryson. I like Joe Brady. But I look at what he's doing with Sam Darnold, and I look at what Joe Brady's doing with Sam Darnold. I look at what he's doing with Teddy Bridgewater, what he's done with him. I like a lot of what they do, but at the same time, Joe Brady's passing game coordinator. That's like saying, I like Matt Nagy. We don't know how he is as a head coach. Hands in the air. Like, there's a lot of that stuff that I feel like would get taken care of in interviews, but we don't get to be in the interviews. We just get to look at team performance, and the Panthers' passing game doesn't look so bad, but I don't know how he is as a head coach overall. He might end up very similar to Nagy when you really think about it. Here, Marquis Christian actually did a good job. Like, I just want to point that out. This was a play where Marquis Christian ends up ISO'd right here as he gets carried outside, but he and Jalen execute a nice little switch on Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp. They blanket both of them, and Matt Stafford has to look somewhere, ends up getting pressured by Angelo Blackson, right here, number 90, who looked like a very solid depth defender, by the way. He rips right on through the offensive line after a little while. Like, look at the time that Stafford's getting compared to Dalton. This is a pressure rep. And even here, he's got 1, 2, 3.5, or something like that. Like, it's, you get the idea. Matt Stafford had an easier game than Andy Dalton did, but he still made the most of it. So one play we got to go over. Feel free to start asking, by the way, about like plays that you want to see, because we're at the hour 45 mark, and we can keep going for like so on and so forth. But it's like, I'm more than happy to keep going, keep talking football, whatever you guys want to do. But this was one of those where it's not this play. We're coming up to it. But so let's see. Yeah, here they get a nice little stop. Just from Max, still in his age, is a very solid run defender. It's Bryson. We already went through the big run, or the big Monty run. We can go through a bunch of Monty runs, because Monty had some huge ones, and we can walk through any and all of them. But so let's keep on moseying right here, because I'm having to go through and basically just remind myself, oh, yikes, this one hurt. So Kindle Vildor had a really funny game. And we can, Jordan, here in a little bit. Vildor basically, like, credit to... Oh, Jordan, I didn't realize you were in SoFi. Good on you. But so, one thing Sean Desai did pretty well, in my opinion, was that he let Vildor play man whenever he could, because I don't think Vildor's crazy comfortable in zone yet. The trouble is that this was one of those plays where Stafford reminded us that the Rams defensive backs are really, really good, and at the end of the day, Kindle Vildor, decent corner. Like, I don't want to come down on Kindle Vildor. He's a 5th-round pick from last year. That we should not expect the world of Kindle Vildor. And yet, this was a big third down. Like, this was the first third down of the second half. The defensive line doesn't get there. We can do the counting thing. Let's go snap. Okay, 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, throw comes out. And if you watch Khalil Mack, there's just not much there. Like, here they even put Mack on the inside. Mack's trying to catch some kind of a one-on-one, create a bit of a stunt with Bilal Nichols. The Bears have they've got 3 one-on-ones right here, and the first one to win it is Hicks. It takes him a while, too, but it hurt. So I don't expect Kindle Vildor. The more that I watch this, the more that I think that this is a perfect play that reminds you of, like, what's wrong with the defensive line. Like, let's be honest, guys. Are we really going to kill Kindle Vildor for 1, 2, 3? Finally, he breaks open on his second break of the play. I mean, don't get me wrong. Jalen Ramsey probably covers him, but... No, that's not something that I would necessarily put on him when you're spending, like, let's go through this. So he is $15 million. He is about to get extended at the moment. Let's just put R for rookie. He's getting paid $12 million. He's getting paid $30 million. So some quick back of the napkin math says that we've got approximately $60 million of pass rush on this snap, right? So you're paying big money. You bought the 5-star dinner, and they're wrong play. Of course it is. But so they get the stop there, forces this play. You still got the same lineup, thank goodness, and they don't get anything. Like, Stafford's got a clean pocket to step into. It's not a good scene. And I'm not trying to come down on him. I'm not trying to just destroy anybody, because I don't know, that's just not my style. But it's a pass rush problem for the Bears, in my opinion, that is really hurting their defense, because their pass rush isn't good and the coverage unit isn't great either. So whenever they do make mistakes in coverage, this one might even be it. Let's see. It always surprises me whenever I watch. Yeah, there it is. Okay, so Darius Butler talked about this. if memory serves. I'd need to go back and rewatch it, basically just to be absolutely certain. But the general gist of this is that the Bears are playing quarter, quarter, half. Everybody loves calling cover 6 quarter, quarter, half. I don't know why everybody, for some reason, thank you, Curtis. I don't know why everybody keeps going quarter, quarter, half, as if that's a different play than cover 6. 6 is what I've always known it as. But so basically, right here, you got Gibson, who is not my favorite player in the world. Gibson is covering his area of the field. Jalen Johnson does a decent job with his responsibility. Eddie Jackson is specifically watching for anything that's going to come over, right, like over here. Like, as far as the way that their drop back goes, the way, as I understand 6, is that Marquis Christian is supposed to carry the vertical. Like, yeah, you get the idea, Jordan. Like, everybody, I feel like quarter, quarter, half has become like the YouTuber's way of sounding really smart. But you get the idea. Anyways, 6. So, yeah, Gibson loves his grass, Reinhardt. But so the trouble here is that Gibson gets fooled because let's go to the moment of the throw. This is something I want you to see. So there. All right, so the throw has yet to come out, right? And what we've got is the outside receiver has run this route, and the inside receiver is about to go there. Where does Gibson cover? Like, I'm obviously not in the DB room, but what I can tell you is that for the half-field safety in a scenario where he's getting split, his role is specifically to make sure he's covering the sidelines. You've got to push it towards, as I understand it, you got to push towards the sidelines, and you've got to let Marquis Christian, who's trailing, just carry the man vertical. That's at least what Darius Butler thinks. I trust Darius Butler. The guys who are like in the game. But so I like that, Shane. But so, as I understand it, this is a gaffe on Marquis Christian because, like, he catches it. Like you said, Reinhardt, it's a beautiful play. But so, this is a great play call because he fools Gibson in the curl route to where both end up open. Like, actually, he's not, because Roquan's got a great sense for zone, by the way. One thing I think personally that Roquan does really well is he got in the middle of his throwing lane. There's nobody else there. Like, I've seen plenty of linebackers that'll just sort of stand here. Maybe they'll drift a little bit over, and you'll get that comeback wide open. If the quarterback wanted to throw it, obviously he's going to throw it to Kupp on this specific play. But in this sense, Roquan's denied it, and if Marquis Christian carries his man, at least the throw has to be more interesting. But as it is, Stafford can truly just lay it up there. I mean, you even see Kupp slow down ever so slightly. Not saying it's bad throw. Anything that's like 40, 45-yard bomb is tough. It's more to say that if Marquis Christian was trailing him, it's an easier... the defense can at least do something. You know what I mean? Instead, it's blown coverage. It's not a good one from Christian. And the trouble, Jay, like you're saying, is that, like, you talk about Shelley versus Christian. Shelley lost the job. Like, so they clearly don't have much. I was not high on Shelley in the preseason. And like you're saying, oh gosh, who was it? Slim Davis. Yeah, I hate to see the way Mac's playing because these are the kinds of plays that you just want a little bit more. Thank you so much, Illinois Exodus. You really have no idea how much every little bit helps. Super, super fun. Thank you. But so, and they did try out DJ Hayden. But so, just for some folks, because Jordan, you talked about this, like, we can talk through what some basic coverages are, and please let me know if I just goof any of these, because it's happened. But so, whenever you hear these terms, like, here is a too high front, you know it's too high because it's two safeties. Like, here's a little learning moment for everybody. But so, let's talk about standard cover 2. Standard cover 2 is Eddie Jackson covers this guy, Sean Gibson covers this guy, Kendall Vildor basically sits in this flat area right here. Oh gosh, I deleted it. I shouldn't have deleted it. So you've got safeties up at the top. You got Vildor defending the flat. Usually you get Jalen Johnson defending this area of the field. This linebacker sinks back right there. This linebacker sinks back right there. I guess that's Marquis Christian. You get the idea, though. And then you'd have a 5-man blitz in cover 2. If you wanted to change it to make it a little further 2-ish, you get like safety, flat, linebacker 1, linebacker 2, pretend that's the linebacker 3, and then flat again. And the ways that you normally want to attack these are you want to either split the safeties with something that looks like that, to where you try to get him over there, and hit the guy in the middle. Or another one that's really popular is you can run like a very basic like smash concept. Fields loves this, by the way, that puts one guy on a curl there and another guy up in this hole, so that when he's there and he's right there, there's that little bitty seam you can throw through, and so on and so forth. Looking back through this, I mean, at this, yeah, I think Thomas Graham needs some time. Like, I'm not a big baptism by fire guy. I think you can end up really destroying somebody's confidence in that sense. But I do think that Thomas Graham has some potential, especially as a zone nickel. But he's got to mature a little bit. On plays like this, I think he'd get toasted as it stands. He's just not quite athletic enough at this moment to defend a Cooper Kupp, and maybe with a little bit of, maybe by training a bit in the defense as a hesitation, or like his hesitation will get better. Joe, almost no doubt, Fields' deep ball is better, like personal opinion. But so, anyways, somebody asked for a little more, so we'll go. Now let's talk cover 4. So this is 4. You would have Jalen Johnson drop back. This is the Rams defense. You'd have Eddie Jackson right there. You would have Marquis Christian drop back into, well, probably not Marquis Christian in this case. You would have like 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 usually involves the corners dropping back. So then the linebackers pretty much defend the hole underneath by themselves. Like it doesn't work that way. And then Marquis Christian often in these quarters setups will sit like there-ish. 4 can be weird. There's so many different ways that people run quarters. That's why you hear the term match quarters thrown around. Like, quarters right now is one of the most popular modern NFL defenses. Colleges use it all the time. Pros are starting to adopt it more and more often. And there are so many different ways. Like, you'll end up with rules like, if this guy goes vertical, Christian takes him. If he doesn't go vertical, Christian will sit in this specific zone, and then this guy will bump over. If Christian yells crosser, then Roquan picks him up. Like, quarters will have some very complicated zone rules. Not just quarters, but people run a lot of it out of quarters. So single high is obviously like you get him up there. This guy comes down. Robber is a very popular cover 1 setup where you end up with Gibson running back there. Eddie Jackson sits in the middle. Bears ran this a ton with Chuck Pagano, and just never got thrown at. I don't think they necessarily were strong. By the way, talking about like channel memes, so somebody mentioned Vildor Island. I love Vildor Island. I've considered putting that on a shirt. Like, because I think it's hilarious. But so the funny thing about Kendall Vildor, somebody asked about him. I'll explain it one more time. I think Vildor's got natural feel for zone, or for man coverage specifically. What I will say is that his zone work just needs practice. Like, he is spicy. He is somebody who tries really hard. Sounds so silly. I do love effort. I'm a sucker for effort. But so Vildor as a zone defender just needs practice. Whereas Vildor as a man defender is naturally NFL level. Like, that's silly to say about a corner, but if you watch Duke Shelley, I don't think he helps. Whereas, yeah, no, I agree with you, Reinhardt. But so, like, when you're talking about Vildor and versus Shelley, I think Shelley looks like he doesn't necessarily belong on a NFL field, whereas Vildor looks like he does. Credit to Pace for that draft pick, very solid. But so as far as after that, like, I do think somebody talked about him projecting at nickel better. Like, I agree. I think that Jordan, that's a good call out. I like the idea of Vildor at nickel. They obviously like him a ton at outside corner. Maybe it's just that they like him enough. They might bump him inside, but right now their second outside corner is already Burns. So Vildor is going to get the starts until they've got anything else to do. Reinhardt will get there. There are some other things I want to go over first, because now that I think about it, like, we can. So let's see. I'm trying to find it. We got to go over this, right? We've got to talk about these plays now down near the goal line. So let me see. Ooh. Yeah. Let's go here. Nice. I don't necessarily think Shelley's too small. I don't think he's natural, right? I think that Shelley waits and reacts to things, whereas a lot of these zone defenders need to be better than that. But so anyways, let's get to this play. Let me make sure it's the one that I'm thinking of. It is. So when people do talk about vertical shots, the one thing that made things a little complicated is that as the game wore on, the Bears tried to get into more of them. Here you're going to see a double post. This has a concept name. I don't remember what it is. That's part of why I need to brush up on things. But the Bears are going to run the same play that they got a clean break off of last year against the Rams with Ben Broniker. I don't think it was last year. It might have been 2019. It was 2019. But so this is one way to try to beat quarters if you think quarters is coming, where you draw this guy right here and this guy off of Mooney's route, and you draw this quarters defender right here off of this post route so that you can try to sneak that tight end into open space. So in this specific play, I want to show you just what it looks like when the Rams quarters defense just sucks up all the deep routes, because the Bears put 3 guys in the end zone on this play from the 20. But as you look around, like bracketed, covered, bracketed, and Allen Robinson's wide open, like wide open. So why wouldn't you take the check down? Like there is some of this. You bet, Jay. I can do that. I'm looking to try to figure out how to do the TikTok thing. Like I really am. It's so silly. But so there were some of the dink and dunks that you have to say, like they were working enough. Like this is the Bears' touchdown drive. When they were efficient, when the offensive line did hold, they got down the field. They converted yards. They didn't have any 3-and-outs. I know. It's a participation trophy. We're all on the same page. It's a participation trophy. But last year's offense had so many just nasty moments that this was better, and the Rams were very, very clear. Like, here we are about 2 seconds into the play. The throw's already come out. But if you look at all the guys that are past the first down line, like, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 defenders at or behind the 10-yard mark. They were very clear about playing such ridiculous bend don't break. Like, this wasn't Tampa 2 bend don't break. This was quarters bend don't break. That underneath stuff like this was just what was open. I do think if Fields could have extended the play more, he would have run more. Like, personal opinion, like, what does a really good quarterback like Justin Fields do? Pretend the Bears win. Like, let's just pretend. You guys get the idea. We're on the same page. This probably wouldn't have happened it does kind of remind me of Double China. That's a good call out, Alessandro. But so what does Fields do, like a quarterback like Fields, that can make a difference in this? A play like this, Fields can get outside the pocket, and he can at the very least challenge the defenders to figure out what they're going to do with him. So if at that point Fields with his speed gets out and decides that he's going to run up the middle, say he takes 10 yards. I mean, this isn't a bad game. This isn't a bad play. It's more to say that what you have to do if you're going to get vertical on the Rams, and Jordan, Alessandro, the guys that know, like, tell me if you think that there was another way to do this, but you had to ultimately punish the Rams enough, make it look so easy to pick up that chunk yardage, be more efficient than their defense can handle. And with Dalton, it was just a matter of time until they screwed up. Like, the Rams could sit back and know that every 10 yards that the Bears picked up, they had to do it 7 times in a drive, or even just 5, and then maybe they'd score. With Fields, what you might be able to do is threaten, extend more plays off of wide open gaps like this, that Dalton, he's not going to do much. Kind of similar to what Brady, Phillip Rivers, even Aaron Rodgers at this point in his career, Matt Ryan, like the guys who are less mobile, this isn't much. But Justin Fields type, he's going to get straight on out of the pocket, and he's going to make something happen. That doesn't mean touchdown necessarily, but at the very least, it means that the coverage has to hold for longer. And when you get those guys covering for 5.5 seconds, you're going to create some breakdowns, very similar to what happens with Russell Wilson whenever he plays the game. But so at this point, like, Dalton gets a nice little completion. Again, it's an okay play. But then we get into 1st and 10. This was an RPO. They ran so many RPOs. But you're going to see right here, it looks like this. This looks like it's the trigger man. He doesn't necessarily come downhill. I don't think they wanted every run or RPO that I've ever seen tends to have like a bent where he seems like he's kind of in the play, kind of not. But Dalton sees him get further over towards the passing lane than he wants, and he hands it off because I screwed it up. But yeah, exactly. Exactly like you're saying, Jordan. Those one way that the Bears could have challenged it would have been boots, and they tried some. Like they didn't end up having enough stuff that they could do to really beat them, because then the Bears, or like the Rams, started blitzing a whole bunch, but you get the idea. So then this play comes, and this is one where you can see that the Bears. Okay, so I don't know how to I don't know how to phrase this. So I'm going to just give it my best shot. But the Bears basically run, I don't remember what the concept is called. They run sort of a like a follow me route where Mooney's going to go up there, and the whole concept is that Goodwin is going to come over right here, and Allen Robinson is going to follow him and tuck in behind. And they end up too close to each other for my liking. Like, I don't love the fact that their defenders are right near each other, but at least when you look at it objectively, Goodwin's open. Like, he's open enough to throw it. Dalton just decides that this lane is too good to pass up. Maybe Matt Nagy said something to him about the last play, like, hey, they're leaving that open. If you get it, you should take it. But credit to Dalton, one thing he's seen is that with Kmet over here and David Montgomery occupying this defender, if Goodwin fades backwards, I think he's got a touchdown. Like, this looks great. It's the sort of thing where he comes back here, and if Dalton breaks out to this spot, he can feed the throw into Goodwin, and Goodwin can walk right into the end zone. But Goodwin doesn't do that. He steps down. I'll call it a chemistry issue for now. And Dalton tries his best. But so, like, this is her, like, Dalton ended up making, I would argue this was probably Dalton's best play of the game, which is hilarious because it's a 9-yard scramble, right? Like, this was probably where he did the most above his station, which is hilarious because I think Fields scores it. Like, if we're looking at what Fields can do, what Fields can't do, I think Fields takes a ton of sacks, or not a ton, but I think Fields takes more sacks than Dalton did. Dalton took 3 off of the plays that he tried to extend, so on and so forth. But I mean, for crying out loud, if you gave Fields this kind of angle where man, and you've got like this running lane right here, it's hard for me to not think that with this look, or like with this look right here, you wouldn't get Fields turning this defender for a pop pass to Goodwin at the absolute least. In this case, yeah, like John Dell'Italia, John Dell'Italia, very Italian. It rolls off the tongue, John. He tried his hardest. Derek, I'm with you. I do think Trubisky could have made that in. Dalton, he's more athletic than you think, meaning he's more athletic than Folds, but he's not athletic. This play I had to talk about. This play is awesome. This is unreal even. I'm sure you've seen it on Twitter. I'm sure. Like, this is amazing because Mustipher is going to fan his block. Whitehair, I think, fans his block. James Daniels gets a decent piece of his guy. Borum blocks his guy, which doesn't mean much. It's an inside run. Like, the Bears aren't trying to, it doesn't, or the Bears aren't trying to run with Borum, but hey, credit to him. But so there's Mustipher getting absolutely danced. Whitehair does not get a piece of his, which puts David Montgomery one-on-one with, he had to break one tackle, get through Aaron Donald, 2 DBs coming down at him. It's James Daniels and David Montgomery versus the entire defense, and Monty says, I'm gonna score it anyways. Like, this stuff's fun. This is the kind of thing that's just bananas. Like, I am blown away Montgomery scored this. Watching the tape, I have to imagine they like popped a champagne bottle for this play because it is so rough from Sam Mustipher. It's not good from Cody Whitehair, but I guess it's good enough. He kind of gets his leg stepped on. I'd have to go back and like look at that again. If Fady gets beat by Donald immediately, like watch it again, you'll see it. I wish I could slow it down like old Game Pass, but So Donald's going to just roast Ifedi, which does not help because Montgomery sees this guy right here. He has to freeze. Why wouldn't he? So then he rips right through, plows through some tackles, gets the ball in. Absolutely bananas. And that's the thing, Alessandro. You talk about Kyler taking a ton of sacks. I actually am pro quarterbacks who get sacked. Deshaun Watson gets sacked all the time. Aaron Rodgers doesn't get sacked all the time. He's kind of the rare guy. But so Watson gets sacked, Russ gets sacked, Dak gets sacked all the time. It is a new school thing to be this running threat quarterback that just gets sacked. And at the end of the day, I think it results usually in less interceptions, more touchdowns, more deep shots, because you can extend those plays. And hey, what do you what's so wrong with taking a couple sacks when you can dig yourself out of a 2nd and 17? The problem for somebody like Dalton is that 2nd and 18 means you should just tell Pat O'Donnell to warm up. It's not going to go well. On the other hand, with somebody like Dak or Justin Fields, you can make it work. You can get something going with on offense whenever you're in a problematic scenario, because you're just one play away from getting out. But exactly like you're saying, to get back to it, Watson, it's Bryson, something between Fields, when I watch him, reminds me of Deshaun Watson mixed with a little bit of Dak Prescott. I feel like Watson plays, and I'm talking just the eye test, right? Watson plays very, you see him move all the time, whereas Dak feels like he flows through everything that he does, very poised player in terms of his just visual look. And in my personal opinion, I think Fields plays with all the mobility and the athleticism that Watson does, with all the poise of Dak Prescott, especially in the pocket. Joe, I tend to think that Fields isn't playing because, A, the offensive line's a nightmare, and I feel like this game kind of showed it. B, I think that Nagy just wants every rookie to get a little bit of time in the oven, per se. I think he's been feeding the narrative, I think Nagy's been feeding the media a fake narrative about this whole Mahomes thing. I really think he was just trying to find some way to say, I'm not playing him during the Rams and the Browns game. My honest guess is that he didn't want to put a rookie in against two of the NFL's hardest defenses, and on an already incredibly hard schedule, maybe the two hardest defenses they'll face all season. Obviously that's tough. You still got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on this, and the Pittsburgh Steelers, both of which look like defensive nightmares on this schedule. But at the same time, you can only take what you can get. And I wouldn't be surprised if Nagy wanted basically Fields to take 3 weeks. We already talked about this one. He wanted to take 3 weeks of Fields getting a feel for game planning and he wanted Fields to see the game plan, play against the number one defense a little bit, not get destroyed by Aaron Donald and these 5-man blitzes, or confused by a whole bunch of weird looks. I don't know, kind of like you guys are saying. When I walk through it makes sense, doesn't it? It's not the worst plan in the world. It's just not fun right now. Watching Andy Dalton is not as fun. Not near as fun. And I mean, again, we could pull the film up, but I'd have to get into my VPN, and that would probably cause some trouble. We could go look at the film of Zach Wilson. He threw a gnarly interception, and one that I would be surprised if Fields won't throw, because he's gotten some time to see the way that different defenses change. You got to remember, the biggest problem that the Bears were dealing with here is that they didn't actually know what the Rams were going to do on defense. They had a brand new defensive coordinator. They had some of the best defensive talent in the league. The one of the other things that they had to deal with was that this was going to be a very adjustment heavy game. I mean, take an example that the Bears run game actually worked. They actually did. I'll let it play. Who am I kidding? The Bears run game actually worked. It played out way differently than they anticipated, where their short passing wasn't near effective enough, and their run game was able to exploit some holes and generate something. And as the game went on, they tried more and more and more. But on the other hand, I look at it and I find myself thinking, that if Fields starts week 4, let's just say Fields starts week 4, he gets to go up against a softer Lions defense for his first impression, and he gets 3 weeks to watch the Lions film. Like they get to see the Lions execute 3 separate game plans, so that when Fields walks in, they have a good idea of what they're going up against, because it's an already known division rival. It's at home, and they have some tape. Whereas with this next game against the Bengals, they're going to be going off of one game. Well, I guess they could probably throw some stuff in from last year, but this game specifically, they were going to be flying blind with an offensive line that had not played together much. But instead, they wrote it out with Dalton. I don't know. Like you said, Jordan, it's McVay's plan. Nagy's just using it. I can't destroy him for it because I think it's going to work. Like, I think the frustrating thing is you could still fire Nagy because I don't necessarily think this is enough. But I do think that Fields is going to end up good. And I think if you started Fields in this game, Fields would still end up good. I am not some weird believer that time sitting like exponentially increases quarterback goodness. You know what I mean? Kyler had a whole bunch of bad habits last year. He ran around. He did not sit in the pocket. And this year, no problem against Tennessee. Like, he looked great. I think Fields would develop just fine. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, whether Fields starts now, or sits for a little bit and then starts later, I do think he'll be good. Like, I think he'll be, as a rookie, good. As a sophomore, very good. As a third year, I think he could push great. Like, really, really great. But you get the idea. Like, that's the thing, Brandon. I hate to pick on things. It's just like Joe, I think that's his biggest risk. Like, Calzagano. A lot of Italian last names in here. Man, my dumb Texan sensibilities are really challenging me with these. Just reading them and reacting to that. But so Joe Calzagano asks, don't you think he's going to lose our locker room? And I think that's his biggest risk. I think that Matt Nagy can plan all he wants to plan. The problem is that Dalton walked out, and I think Dalton made A-Rob mad. I think he made Goodwin mad. I mean, Goodwin's the one who just got signed, and Goodwin basically walked out and said, like, yeah, I feel like we played right into Ramsey's hand, basically not throwing it all. Like, it sucks. Because I don't think Nagy has a bad plan. I just don't think he gets the patience to execute it. I mean, with the way that the Trubisky thing went, with the way that Trubisky stuff went, the Foles stuff was a nightmare. Like, those Foles game plans were just terrible. I mean, I don't know how much of it you put on Foles, if you wanted to put it on Foles, but it was just, they were bad. I'll be the first to tell you guys. I have to write this out. So feel free to meme it. I deserve it. I'm sorry about, gosh, it's really ruining the moment. This could be nice and heartfelt, but my pen isn't working. About Foles. Because, see, my problem was that I just kept waiting for Foles' accuracy to get a little bit better than it was, and it never did. And at the end of it, Foles finished having basically not hit any relevant deep shots, and it was tough. Like, it was tough. Like, watching that Foles stuff. That Texans game was just terrible. It was so bad. And the Mitch offense was, yeah, I guess it did, John. Like, I just have to own that I was so tired of watching Mitch that I basically was so tired of watching Mitch and the limited stuff that he could do that I wanted anything else. And I really learned my lesson about asking for literally anything else, because a lot of signs said Foles was going to struggle. He came in. He didn't even look nearly as good as he did in other stuff. Exactly like you're saying, Jordan. Foles needs to be on that perfect team. And we got the Foles from Jacksonville, if not a little bit worse. And yeah, it hurt. But so somebody asked earlier, or going back up, Yeah, Jay, I think you're right. Like the scary thing that Bears fans could probably serve to learn is that this game was very clear about exactly where the team is. Derek, I agree with you. And unfortunately, it's Bryce and I have to deliver some bad news. I think the offensive line looked very bad. I think that, believe it or not, Nagy and Dalton did help them. I think that they could have looked like Minnesota and Tennessee, maybe worse, because Donald was playing his butt off. But that the game plan hit it. It just hit it at the cost of points. Like, I think that there were some play action things. Let me find some, because there were some. Let's see, 34, 30. I think you may have already watched them, but let's watch them here. So the Bears tried some play action, which isn't to say that they should have done more. Big believer in play action. It's the hot thing right now. I'm sure somebody will figure out some way to like tamp down on play action, because where offense goes, defense follows. Like, I don't know if you guys follow him. If you look up on Twitter, the guy's name is Art of X. I think his name is Cody Alexander. He is a phenomenal defensive mind, as is Dave Aranda, current coach of my alma mater, the Baylor Bears. But so there are going to be things the defenses do to counter play action a little bit better, but right now play action is in vogue, and they defended this pretty well. Like, you're going to see that they actually dropped into a cover 3 look for once. So one deep safety, corners fading backwards, and they snuffed out with some linebackers dropping. There's still bend don't break. Tons of people back here. So bodies all around the throwing lanes. Dalton does what he can, dumps it off, runs back up the field, and gets some stuff. Like, solid. But so, like, at this point, let's see. Bryson, I would tell you that there's, what is it? Let me see. Yeah, Curtis, that was something. Like, it sounds silly, but like, the trouble here is that when you watch the Saints, right? Like, so let me give you some decent examples. You watch the Saints. The Saints have an incredible offensive line. They look incredible, right? Jameis Winston helps. They don't really have a lot of receivers, with Callaway being kind of their seeming wide receiver 1 at the moment, but they have a great offensive line, and they can run the ball like crazy, and so they do. Like, they can do a ton of things. They can run play action. They could run standard running plays. They could just pass, and Jameis could sit there for 5 seconds on sometimes and just make it go, you know? But the Bears can't. They get 2.5, if that. Like, if you get more than 2.5, you're taking a loan out from, like, God or something like that, because this offensive line really struggled. And as they face weaker pass rushers, I think they could make that work. Right. But the problem is that with Tampa Bay on the schedule and Baltimore and Pittsburgh, especially, like, they are not going to, I don't think the schedule is just easy enough. Like, I think there's a chance. I've been saying this for a while. This is the nicest I think I'm going to get about the Bears or this year. I think at the end of the year, the 2021 Bears would beat the 2020 Bears. Maybe they'd beat them now. But I think that this team will be better than the other team. They'll just get wrecked by some really good teams that they didn't have to face last year. Like, the Saints was the strongest team they faced, and that game Nagy coached out of his mind. They were Roquan Smith catching that pick 6 away from beating the Saints, which is nuts. But it was that close the first time, that is. The second time, they just struggled. But Case, good to see you. Happy that you're here. Yeah, it's weird to talk about, because I really thought Nagy tried to hide the trouble, but by bringing the floor up, he took the ceiling out. Like, here's an example of something that the Bears, tried to do, where you're going to see that same rollout, but the Rams were just adamant about pushing people through the line of scrimmage. I don't know why the Bears don't, for instance. But when you run a rollout, you're not expecting to get that guy in your face. Normally, by the way, I don't know why, but I've talked to the author of this, like the author of Bobby Peters, who's one of the smarter offensive minds I know, and usually the guy who I ping with all of my specific questions because I don't have Sean Payton's phone number. But which, by the way, if you ask me to like rank offensive coaches, I think Andy Reid's awesome. I think Sean McVay's awesome. I feel like Sean Payton's one of my favorites at this moment. He almost goes underrated because Shanahan and McVay are so popular, young, and in vogue. Sean Payton's awesome. He is so good. He's got so many years in the league, and he still finds ways to be inventive, which is fun. But so, yeah, I want to get to some Larry Borom. We'll get there. But so the Bears ran the same play action that's very popular. These play action concepts usually leave this guy open for some reason. I think it's because they're supposed to get downfield. Maybe there is a tell. Yeah, Brandon, I see that Brett Coleman reference. I see it. But so at this point, you see him penetrate. This is where the play action stuff, maybe there's part of them that they didn't run it because what is the word? Maybe part of the reason that they didn't run play action, I'm thinking out loud here, right? I'm not trying to give excuses. I'm trying to just think out loud, is because the Rams are so consistent about just penetrating, right? Remember all those trap runs with people coming from kind of out of nowhere to push guys out of the way? The penetration really blows up your play action because you're expecting the defensive line to follow the linemen, and they just didn't. Like when the Bears did run play action, a lot of it involved Dalton just kind of getting chased around. And that's not normal. Even Foles got some decent pockets, but man, like a play like this hurts bad. And I don't know, maybe Nagy got gun shy. Nothing would surprise me. I don't want to stand too hard. But this was a game that at the end of the day, like I think this is all, by the way, this is Borom stuff. So you can watch Borom during all these plays and try to get a sense for like how he looks. I haven't actually stared at him quite yet. I personally think if I was going to grade Larry Borom, by the way, just based on the preseason, talking out loud, I would tell you that Borom has the frame. He seems like he's got a lot of what you want in a tackle. His feet are solid, but he gets kind of twisted up. You can even see it happening right here. You really don't want your left foot that far closed. He's a right tackle. He's very accustomed to playing over here where his feet would be a little bit wider. Like this is he's probably used to going down the line the opposite way to this day. I see Larry Borom very similarly to Travis Gibson, a talented player that's currently in his out of position phase that needs a year to bake and really find himself at that left tackle spot. It's not that he can't play and he's finding himself ever so slowly. It's just hard to go straight from right tackle at Missouri your whole life to the left side and not have some footwork and some hand placement issues that if you watch him, like you'll see that he's using that hug technique that David Bakhtiari has made really popular. Like you can watch him. This is obviously not a great example. Bears try play action again. They get nothing. This one, credit to Cole Kmet. He just sort of finds something, right? Mooney, covered. A-Rob, over here, covered. Wide receiver down the sidelines, covered. Cole Kmet, covered. But Kmet pulls out just sort of a stop and fade backwards and sucks the ball up like a vacuum. This was solid. This is the kind of thing you want to see if you're a Cole Kmet fan, by the way. Because these are, like, I don't think Cole Kmet is some kind of wildly athletic guy. Like, I think he's big. I think he's a willing blocker. I think he has solid straight line speed. But as far as being that Travis Kelce flexible tight end U guy or the Kittle domineering force, I don't know. I don't see it. What I will see is that I think that Kmet can be that zone finder if he's coached properly, like he was here. Like, this is a really smart play. This is something he wasn't doing last year. He figured it out and he found something for his quarterback on a third down. Like, this was really solid. Yeah, he does, Derek. Kmet does have his like little rage moments here and there. I don't know. There are so many people that I think are so unbelievably and unrealistically hard on Kmet. I get being hard on Jimmy Graham. Jimmy Graham's being paid a lot, but being hard on Kmet has always seemed kind of harsh to me because people act like second rounders need to be first rounders, and I don't know. I don't agree. Like, I agree, Jordan. Like, that's where my head's at. I just said I don't agree and I agree. But I don't agree that Kmet is this guy that we need to just be slandering as a he sucks like Adam Shaheen. Kmet seems to me like a solid player. He may only end up a double at the absolute strongest, but like he's at least a single. His floor is pretty high. And I do think that as he grows as a blocker, like look at this. This is a solid little play by him. Like here's another decent example. We can watch Borum and we can watch Kmet at the same time. But you see like Borum gets right in front of his guy. So this is something that I do want to just show because it's real. At this moment, Borum relies a lot on just grabbing his guy and hanging on. Here you're going to see, I don't know if I'd call it a hold. It's that like hug technique, again, the Bakhtiari thing. And his hand placement needs to get a little bit better going forward. But at the moment, he's figuring it out. And I think, like you said, Jordan, he's really solid. Like as far as he's shown some things in Pass Pro that I wouldn't have expected out of a 5th rounder that lost £1 billion. Because I think he dropped 45 pounds, which is just bananas. Like, so he does a lot of things that I think are better than I would have anticipated. I just think he needs that time. Isaiah, you asked me who would I compare him to? Kyle Rudolph, not a question. Like, it's not even just the Notre Dame thing. I personally think that I think Kyle Rudolph, and it's not just the Notre Dame stuff. It's that, let me see. Oh, yeah, I got you, Alessandro. I was following that conversation a little too closely. No, Kyle Rudolph and Kmet both went to Notre Dame, but more importantly, Rudolph and Kmet are both of those guys that I don't think will ever be masters of anything. I think that they're closer to being jack of all trades, master of none. So Kmet can block a little bit, and he can block a little better than you anticipate, and he can make a play out on, like, he can catch the ball and he can run with it. He can run a seam route and so on and so forth. I also think exactly like you're saying, Jordan, that comps are tough, but because I don't think players are the same in a lot of these cases. But I would look at Kmet specifically and think he's got a longer development curve than plenty of people are giving him credit for, which hurts, but it's true. Let's take a look at this rep right here. Let's see. Yeah, exactly, Case. Like, I would say that Kmet's straight line speed ain't so bad, by the way. Okay. Check out Borum here. This is a way better rep than I would have anticipated. So he's got a double team along with Kmet. But either way, it's still Borum's job to get that inside shoulder and turn him. So you're going to see this is so this blocking scheme. Let's back it up. I can explain it to you. This is duo, I think. A lot of people like to have arguments on the internet about whether something is duo or whether something is inside zone. Usually the way that I've seen it is that if you see a direct double team with no intent to get up to the second level, it's usually duo. In my case, or it's a short yardage way to just sort of blast through the defensive line. Like, this is good. And so Borum's job is to get to the inside shoulder and push up just as hard as he can. Just smash back through the line. And he does it. He and Kmet are able to turn 94. It looks like Mustafa and Whitehair get enough of Donald. Well, not like enough, because Donald ultimately breaks through. Is that Donald? It's not Donald. That would have made more sense. But so they get enough on this duo call and just blast right on through, so on and so forth. Yeah, Bryson, the trouble is that the Bears were 8th in pressure, yes, but they threw so many short balls that I would have been shocked if they wouldn't have. They basically just didn't allow pressure by nature of the play calling, believe it or not. This is a really nice little outside zone call. Bang, 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 bang. Look at this offensive line right here. James Daniels carts his guy down the sidelines, as does Jermaine Ifedi. But you've got a nice little double team right here. Borum does his job. Credit to him, as he's able to at least hold his man up, and Damian Williams goes right up his back. Isaiah, I think Nagy could get fired. Personal opinion, if Nagy gets fired, Pace should go too, or vice versa. If Pace should get fired, Nagy should go too. I can only watch what I see schematically, right? Like, I can only look at the game plans and evaluate them. And Nagy's had some duds, but Nagy's had some decent ones. Like, and so I am very all over the place on Ryan. What do you want me to read? I may have just missed something. But so I'm ambivalent with Nagy. Things need to be better. I completely understand all the commenters here. I need to say what you know I need to say, and that's that the Matt Nagy offense has not been very good over time. Like, sure, you could pin it on Trubisky, but then you have to pin it on Foles, and then you have to pin it on Dalton. And how many quarterbacks do we have to go through before you're just bad? I get it. Like, I really do. But I think, or I see some of this stuff like exactly case. Like, if you're wishy-washy, it's probably not it. So at this point, if I put Nagy in the trash, I feel like you got to put the general manager that picked picked two coaches that weren't very good. Like, he had the Fox thing, he had the Nagy thing. That's not good. But you get the idea. Like, as it goes. So somebody said that they hate the shuffle pass. Believe it or not, I don't. I hate the fact that he threw it. Believe it or not, this is what I would consider Justin Fields' only mistake of the game. Like, true mistake, if that makes sense. This in this specific case, what you're going to see is it's an option. So he obviously can keep it if he doesn't like what he sees here, or he can throw the shuffle pass. And I don't know if Fields didn't make the read. I mean, obviously he's looking at the guy, but if you asked me in a contest of speed right here, who's going to win between Marquise? Is it Marquise Goodwin? Let me back up. It's Mooney. Frankly, even more, I would tell you, like, even more so. If I had to pick between who's going to win in a foot race between this edge defender or Darnell Mooney by the time you get to there-ish, I would absolutely tell you that I think Mooney can get to the edge. But instead, I can't tell because, Mustafer's not blocking that guy. The goal here, just so everybody's aware, is that you're deliberately leaving that guy unblocked. Like, at this point, Mustafer's headed upfield because you know somebody's flowing over. The goal is this guy needs to lose. So if you're not going to hand it off to Mooney, he's got to get way over here. Instead, like in this specific case, Mustafer actually does his job, Bryson. Like, exactly, Jordan. Like, I'm not trying to just destroy Fields on this. It's just his one, it's his one mistake. Like, it's not much. Every quarterback makes mistakes, and it's like a 1 yard gain at that. So it's not that bad, right? Since A-Rob doesn't drop it, it could be a billion times worse by the end of it all. But Hollins right here doesn't squeeze clearly. I'm just basically just going to quote him right here. Like, I thought Hollins read way down, or like Hollins did not squeeze on Mooney very obviously. He ultimately played it pretty well. I think the second time around he hands it off. It's a quick one to read, but you get the idea. So Ryan, I don't know, man. I thought the interior offensive line really struggled. Like, I thought Whitehair had a really rough game, all things told. I thought Mustafer looked like Mustafer, like, for better or for worse. I personally thought that Mustafer in particular looked like, I don't know, he just looks under-talented to me, which hurts to say because it's sad. But I would say that the play calling did a better job of holding back Aaron Donald than the line did, because the play calling just ran quick throws all the time. Like, I wouldn't call it crazy good offensive line that they let Aaron Donald through almost every single play. I would say they got the ball out. And whenever they, whenever they ran a deeper route, which was rare, Donald got straight through and destroyed him. Like, it's tough to watch. And it's got to be better against the, It's got to be better against the Bengals, or it's not going to get any, or it's not going to go anywhere. But so, the James Daniels I actually thought played really well. If you watch James Daniels, like, his pass pro wasn't crazy good, but his run blocking was awesome. I thought he was probably the Bears' strongest run blocker, like, without a doubt. He was handling his one-on-one assignments like a champ. And so James Daniels at right guard, off to a good start. In case, I don't know how longer we'll go. Probably not long. Like, let's get into the closing part. It's 11:40, and I'll put something together on the run game that's a little cleaner cut, because I want to go through the way that they mixed everything up. I want to be able to deep dive on that a little bit. I don't hate the fact that we're back to the Fields play right here, because you get the idea. Like, we look at so. It's Bryson asks, what do I think that is holding the offensive line back? Believe it or not, it's simpler than you think. I would tell you the fact that the Bears have one well-paid linemen. They have a UDFA. They have a guy off a fishing boat. They have, who do I think I can be starting, Saul? Like, I would tell you that they probably have the starting five right. Like, I don't think I would necessarily play Borum immediately, but that's because I don't like rushing. No, I totally get you, Case. Have a great night. Thank you so much for stopping by. So if it was up to me, I don't love rushing players into plays. Don't love the baptism by fire nature. I get it. That's part of why the fact that Nagy didn't want to throw them in or throw Fields in against this Rams stuff doesn't bother me, because I think it would have been a complex, complicated game. And yeah, sure, he could have learned from it, but you get the idea. So I look at, instead, this offensive line. I think they've got the starting setup right. It's not like I think it's not as if I look at the Bears offensive line and I somehow think that Alex Bars should be starting here, or Jermaine Ifedi's in the wrong position, and I don't know, James Daniels at right tackle. Like, I'm not going to give you that hot take where I go, oh man, Cody Whitehair's out of position, or they should be playing Elijah Wilkinson, he should be the starter. You get the idea. Like, I think whenever Borum's ready, they'll put him in, especially because Peters is going to be so in and out that I don't think there's any question. It sucks that Borum's now gotten meaningful reps in 2 games and he's gotten hurt in like 2 out of 3, because I forgot about the Titans game in that case. But so I look at the Bears offensive line right now, and I find myself thinking that Sam Mustipher is a great backup center. I'm proud of him. His journey as a UDFA is borderline inspirational. He's probably not a starter. So Jermaine Ifedi at right tackle is just not who you want there long term. Jason Peters is an obviously short-term solution that was supposed to be Tevin Jenkins. Chances are Tevin will slot in on the right tackle, and then you hope Borum sits in on left tackle. If you get both bookends out of one draft, you did an incredible job. Like, surprisingly. And Ryan Pace spent a 2nd, a 3rd, and a 5th round pick on offensive line. He got Tevin Jenkins and Larry Borum. So if he pulls like a starter out of Borum, it actually kind of works. Cody Whitehair needs to improve. He had a very bad game. They probably need to draft or sign a center. And at this point, you would, thank you so much, Bud Stats. Heck yeah. Thank you, Quentin. Great to see you. But so I look at this offensive line and I think you got to figure out something at center. You got to I think you get the new tackles at this point, and then things get better. It sounds so silly to say, oh, what's the problem with offensive line? Oh, it's just that they've got, actually, John, you didn't say wrong. Like, they're kind of starting 3 guys that I don't think should be there. But the bright side is James Daniels looked pretty good. And so if they could find a way to to extend him for not $1 billion, I think that would work pretty well, like, for them. But anyways, getting to the Fields play, this is the kind of stuff that the Bears can do with Fields that they can't do with Dalton at all. I think Musty's a big part of the problem, is the way I'd put it, Bryson. But so Holtz is going to come over here. He's going to block. We diagrammed this earlier, but so the Bears catch the offensive line or the defense flowing towards the left because, thank you, Curtis. Great. Thank you so much. Seriously, that is so unbelievably kind. But so, what you get is the defense is flowing this way purely because they see Mooney coming in motion and a handoff this way. They see zone read. What Matt Nagy and the offense do that's surprisingly creative is that they sneak JP Holtz over as backward action that surprises them a little bit, and so they get Fields in a beautiful 2-on-3 where Fields is 1-on-1 over here. I'd say Allen Robinson does a decent, not good job with he does a decent, not good job with his block. JP Holtz does a great job with his. He just gets as much as he can here, and then frankly moves on and takes the more inside guy, and Fields does the rest. This is the kind of stuff that it doesn't all have to be end zone. Like, the bright side about this aspect of Fields' game is that it doesn't go away. It works just as well at the midfield as it does anywhere else. You can threaten the edges whenever you want to. And you can run a whole lot of, from different formations, you can run sprint out stuff. you can roll Fields out. That play that we saw where Dalton was dead to rights, yeah, Fields probably going to have to throw that one away too. But a lot of the other stuff, Fields has a much more dynamic run threat. Frankly, this offense needs Fields. Like, it sounds so silly, right? They need somebody like Fields that can be a difference maker. And so I think the backup center, Hitesh, is probably Alex Bars, believe it or not. But so that's at least who they seem to be warming up there, because I don't think that they would just move him over. But so I do continue to expect Nagy playing the fourth downs. Interesting you should ask. I think that going for fourth downs is not only modern, but analytically speaking, it's a net boon. Like, you shouldn't be over on your fourth downs. You should get some. The Rams went for a fourth down. They made it look easy. You've just got to execute better. And so whether it's stronger play calls, because I don't hate the fourth down play calls, but Dalton didn't find Kmet wide open on the first one. And Allen Robinson didn't win against Jalen Ramsey on the second one. So I look at them and I think the fourth down execution's got to get better, but that's a story you guys have heard time and time again, right? Like, oh, the play call's there, the execution's just not. It's got to happen eventually. I think Fields can make a big difference. I think, let's put it this way. If Fields, thanks so much, Matt. Great seeing you subscribe. Oh my gosh, Sam, unbelievably kind of you. Thank you so much. Every little bit helps. That is so kind. Thank you. So, talking through what you should expect to change, right? If Matt Nagy is going to play this stupid short passing game forever, and I said stupid, I've been kind of talking it up, but that's purely because of the way that the Rams play defense, and I don't expect everybody to play defense that way forever. In fact, that's very Rams specific based on the talent they have up front and the talent they have on the back end. They can do whatever they want to. But the Bengals should play more standard defense. I could try to go through and take a look at what it is that they do, but I don't really know. Believe it or not, Ryan, I would expect that if the Bears are going to win, they'll need 27 points. So it'll be a nice challenge for Dalton. Because, Ryan, I think the Bengals are going to put up more than that. The Bears' defense did not look good enough for me to feel great about Kendall Vildor up against T. Higgins and Marquis Christian up against Tyler Boyd and Jamar Chase, who found himself in that Vikings game, even up against Jalen Johnson and Tashawn Gibson. The Bears' back 5 or 6 guys is not so good that I'm like, yes, we're going to destroy them. But the Bengals DBs are worse than the Bears receivers, in my opinion. And I do think that the Bears have a chance to victimize some stuff down the road. Bryson, right now, I would probably tell you Montgomery is the best player. Based on what we saw with this game specifically, Montgomery looked like a top 5 back. I mean, you guys have heard me on this channel. I have never said that before. I know that that's something the Twitter timeline loves to just talk about Montgomery's the best back in the league. Montgomery had the highest expected rushing yard, he had the highest rushing yards over expected rushing yards in the league by far. Curtis, shout out. Heck yeah. But so thanks so much, seriously, for becoming a member. The member thing's awesome. If you want better emotes, let me know. I can update the emotes so that they're more fun. Because the more members we get, the more emotes I can plug in. I think I have a Mitch emote. I can change that out. Sorry, guys. But so, anyways, getting back to brass tacks. Montgomery looked like the best player on this offense. He refused to go down. At this moment, he's my number 1 with Robinson, number 2, Fields probably after that, Mooney after that. And I am not trying to suggest that I basically am trying to just not overvalue Fields. I think that the Fields that we are going to get as a rookie is going to be very similar to the Fields that we got in OSU. And that means just a smidge of a slow processor. I'm not trying to harm him, by saying that. But if there's one thing Justin just needs time to bake in, it's processing defenses quickly. And so whether he can roll out on PA bootlegs and so on and so forth, that's the kind of thing that he's just going to be money on. I think, Jordan, you put it really well an hour ago. when you said Fields' preseason shows that if something goes wrong with Fields, it's a Bears dysfunction problem and not a Fields problem. I couldn't agree more. Like, Fields' arm accuracy deep is just spectacular. It's fun. It's fun. It's fun to watch. Like, Tony, that's the thing. I'm not trying to harp on his processing. I think that his short stuff, again, like, we're talking about like a half second behind. You know, like we're saying he's not like, oh gosh, he can't read the defense. Like, he is a thoughtful player that is clearly learning more and more about defenses as he goes. I think his mental growth from his sophomore year in his first year in OSU's offense to his junior year was way underrated, because I thought he looked outright confused. Case, that's hilarious. I personally thought Fields looked outright confused plenty of times his first year at Ohio State, whereas his second year at Ohio State, he looked stronger. He looked like he knew where he was going with the ball. He was decisive. He was way better than that. Like, he improved a ton. I think by the time he's been in the league for a little while, that issue has a very good chance to go away. But so, let's see. Have I had a technical issue yet, Derek? I think that was in there last I checked. But so, let's see. Have we had a bingo yet? I don't know if anybody's been playing. But so, for those in the chat, if you want to join the Discord, have we done a Discord ping? Because the Discord's really fun. At this point, they've started playing bingo based on what I will and won't say. But so, yeah. So, anyways, getting back to it. I think Fields is going to look great, especially by the time that he's ultimately grown a little bit. I think that his deep shot ability, you asked about play action. I think the Bears are going to use so much play action. That sounds silly, right? But at this point, Nagy has abandoned whatever he is. This is a West Coast offense. Yes, but Dalton likes West Coast offense. So you should have expected a West Coast offense, if that makes sense, with Dalton. With Fields, I think you're going to see a more Goff-like offense. I'm not trying to say Fields is Goff, but if we go and look at Jared Goff's game against the Lions, or with the Lions against the 49ers, can we all agree that Jared Goff, when he gets time in the pocket and he can deliver the ball, has a great arm? Jared Goff throwing the ball is a guy you want on your team. Jared Goff processing the defense, not really a guy you want on your team. And that's okay. Like, the good and the bad with Jared has always been complicated, because like Garoppolo, people want to make it out like he's terrible, but he's not terrible. He's just got weaknesses. And so at this point, I expect to see Justin Fields running a boot-heavy offense with a ton of play action and like a whole lot of the ability to create extended plays. Because when Justin Fields gets the time to look at the defense and spend a little extra time processing it, I think he's going to do a good job. Like, I do. And so at this point, I'm pretty confident that by week 10, the offense will look generally stronger. Now, like Jordan said in the chat, this is a murderer's row. Like, this is an absolutely killer schedule. This is a schedule that is as hard as I have ever seen it. I mean, the Lions have to play kind of the same schedule. So the whole rest of the division does. So I don't know what will happen inside the division, but I will tell you that the schedule is a disaster. But at this point, like, at this point I look at the Bears offense, I think it'll be healthier by the time we get there. Sure, Case, which one? I think we've gone over most of these, but let's see. I want Rodgers to throw the season so badly. Somebody talked about that. I think that's hilarious. The Dalton run. Let's see. It's not the end around. Is it? Am I too far forward? Let me know. Let me know if I am. Great. The tool for some reason has like a 30 thing. Let's see. I do think, Ryan, I do think that after a little bit of time, Fields will look nice and ready. Either way, actually. I don't think that Fields somehow needs game snaps. Like, I don't think that's what he needs. I think he just needs time inside of the, let's see. Okay, you're killing me. The Dalton run, like, way, 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 way back? Let's see. Is it the play action one around here somewhere? It's not that. Man, I am just distracted. Sorry. Oh, that one. The Dalton run. Like, you mean the one 2750? Like this play. It's not this play per se. It's the one that's about to come up. So I think we know what we're doing. Thank you so much, Tony the Bod Boss. That's so kind of you. Seriously, thank you. Happy to do all this stuff. But so, let's see. It's not this one. It's the next one, obviously. Dingus. But so. Oh, that's I think probably the harshest thing about some of this case. It's interesting you talk about that. I think Dalton looked solid. Like, I've seen a lot of Bears quarterbacks get absolutely crunched by a defense like the Rams was throwing at them. Like this team was a tough one to go up against. I thought Dalton tried. The trouble is that he didn't have any of the ceiling plays. We said this earlier. But so like Dalton's floor, like his worst play, the interception, was really bad and it hurt the game tough. But his best play, probably this one, was good. It was just a perfect example of where Fields would help. Like, the funny thing was that Dalton's his big thing that he was going to do well was play that quick game, and he would have done pretty solid. Reinhardt, I think this could have been a Mitch 3-point game. If it was 9, it would have been 6 at the end. Like, very similar to the Saints game, right? Technically, that was a Mitch 9-point game, but that's because he picked up 94 yards in the fourth quarter. Like, this would have been rough. Sam, sure, we certainly can. Oh man, it was thank you guys so for all that. We certainly can. Sam, let's go over that in just a little bit. But so yeah, Case, Dalton's athletic. Like, he's not that slow overall. Like, there are slower quarterbacks, especially slower older quarterbacks. But exactly like you're saying, Jordan, Dalton didn't order the benching. Dalton did not help himself. Like, he didn't say Justin Fields has to play now, but he also didn't not. So the conversation got louder, as it would naturally, because you get the idea. He didn't play. It's the whole, like, you weren't bad, you just weren't good at all. And Derek, he's got that C speed. It's just not an F. Like, exactly, Case. But so, let's see. Bryson, I don't think so. I think Fields will be different. Very different. Like, I struggle to say that like, I don't think Fields will be confused, and I don't think Fields will throw picks. I really don't. Like, I'll be surprised if Justin Fields not throws any interception. I just don't think Fields will throw many. I don't think he's going to throw into a ton of tight windows, unless coach, like, tells him to. So we'll see what happens. Let's see. You want to talk about the DPI? Fine. Just for you, Jordan. We will talk about the DPI, because that one was a sad one. Let me see. 2455. I want to talk about this one. This one's, like, not a poor thing. Let me see. I think Fields... Oh, yeah, Bryce. You're asking me a layup. Do I think Fields has that zip? I think Fields has that zip, man. Like, Fields just got that it. I don't know even who I'm doing, like, an impression of. But, like, yeah. You want to ask a question exactly like that? I sure think he does. But so, here is a play action I wanted to walk through really quickly. And I've botched the timing of it. Gonna get better at this, folks, I promise. But thanks for just hanging out and just having a good time. So, here we've got a play action ball that actually is pretty solid, all things told, because the Bears don't get what they want. They want to take a deeper shot, and the Rams covered the deeper shot, but they're going to get something to commit anyways. Like, you'll see them motion him in. Bears used a lot of motion. They can clearly tell it's quarters out of that, and you see the Bears try to get Goodwin over here. He's come, I'll connect the route, and then Mooney runs the out and up. This is that levels play. This is the Trubisky play. You know, like this is the play where they ran it with Trubisky all the time. Dalton's got men in his face, and he's just gonna dump it off to Kmet, and Kmet is gonna go upfield, and he's gonna get something out of it. Like this is the kind of stuff that I think they'll do even more so with Fields, because right here, like this man against Justin Fields probably doesn't catch him. He has to play he has to play it very, very differently. This defender, if it's Fields, I don't want to make Fields out to be Superman. I really don't. But like if Fields was the one turning around here, this defender screaming down is just as liable to get flat out beat. And chances are Fields does literally the same thing, because exactly like Case is saying, here's this like 34-year-old man turning around and seeing 1, 2, 3 guys coming straight at him. He's about to get mega lasered, and he just chucks it out. It's not a screen, Reinhard. It's just play action. They call it like play action run blocking. So what you get, thank you so much, Tony, by the way, for donating. Seriously, so helpful. What you get with these play action run plays is the attempt is to block down right here and push it all and push the defensive line to where they aren't where you want them to go. So if they go at Montgomery, like if everybody flows way over here on outside zone, ideally you don't end up with 3 guys right here. And if you don't, I think Mooney actually would have been open on this. Like all things told, I think that I think that when they run this with Fields, if he can get to that edge, you've got that intermediate throw to Mooney that we really didn't have. And it is great defensive coaching, Case. They penetrated hard on outside zone just in case it was play action and made it really, really tough. And Curtis, I saw that. That was hilarious. Like, I felt so bad because when Charles Leno, like he had a decent season last year, despite what anybody will say. But man, he's looked terrible in Washington. He's looked so bad. All of a sudden, like if this is the Leno that the Bears were seeing, I completely get why they let him go. Like he got he immediately got Fitzpatrick hurt. It was sad. Oh gosh. I hope not, Saul. I hope nobody's at the window. That's not what I want to hear. But so let's see. Yeah, Bryson, it's wild. Like, especially this season. I mean, you get the idea. Let's see. There's Borum doing his job. Nope, that's Peters. Just kidding. Shh. Nobody think about that. All right. So Sam asked earlier if we could watch the Dalton pick. So we're going to. But first, we're going to watch the Mooney or the Montgomery run one more time. Sam, this is for you. We'll do a positive, then we'll do a negative. So I love this run so much. This run is an amalgamation of all the things the Bears were doing well that I think really, really, really helped. Like this offensive line, we've talked about it. It didn't play great. But what instead did was it manipulated the Rams defense in ways that benefited the offense. Like the offensive line didn't do a ton on this. Just for you, Reinhardt, I'll see if I can't pick that up, or like we'll go over that one third. But so on this play, number 69, penetrates downfield, and James Daniels carries his man, and that's enough. All these guys over here, they all get dammed up. Mustafer doesn't get much right here alongside Whitehair as they try to double team to get up to the second level. But there's just too many defenders in this area that Montgomery's going to cut it back. He's just going to make magic happen, basically, and just rip down the field. Like, good on Montgomery. This is great running back vision. We talked a lot about how he cut everything up the field, but like this was awesome. He cuts it up. He rips right on through and gets down the field. Good stuff. But so let's see. Did I like the way Nagy used Damian Williams? I didn't mind. I don't know. It's trouble because David Montgomery, he was just eating them alive. Like he was just going crazy this game. So taking the ball away from Montgomery, I don't know, but I have no idea. Ryan, Nagy went for it on fourth down a ton because not only do analytics love going for it on fourth down, but what it does do is it obviously offers the opportunity to potentially score a touchdown, and we are in this point in the league right now where touchdowns just matter so much more than field goals. It's not 2010 anymore, which sounds so silly, but especially with this defense, you got to play. Like, you got to go for some of those. And they did. I really liked the fact that they went for it on fourth down as often as they did. They just needed to convert him. And yeah, Monty does look faster. Like, really, he does. He looks faster. He looks taller, better, faster, stronger. The whole Kanye bit. Like, here's the Fields RPO. He just takes the alert, fires the ball. Look at that zip. I don't want to make too much of this. We already talked about it even. But like, Fields, his ability to just throw so quickly is wild to me. That ball just rockets over there. It's awesome. I would tell you Monty looks more like a 4.5 guy this season. Like, probably not 4.4 per se, but 4.5, like, faster, which is great. But, I mean, you say Monty's never taken it to the crib, but that 3-yard run he had, like, awesome. Perfect. That's the thing, Jay. I know Monty's a 4.6 guy. I think he looked to split a bit faster on this. Here, that's the false start. Now I get to talk about the interception. Great. So, you have to like it. I don't know if you already have, but you have to like the video in exchange for me going over this again, because I hate watching this. This was terrible. This was bad. And I thought Dalton kind of acquitted him. Look, I don't know if he acquitted himself per se, but like, he definitely looked a lot better than this after the game. But this was terrible. So what we talked about, this is a double curls. Well, he's got Monty on a curl. It's double slants that's trying to target the single high safety. The safety has to pick one. He has to pick between Kmet and Mooney. So what you're hoping for is that if Kmet wins his route and the safety bites down on Kmet, you've got a window to Mooney. But it all matters on what this guy does. And in this case, the biggest problem that they have here is that he doesn't follow Kmet. They're playing a zone. They've baited Dalton. Because what Dalton's anticipating, if I could just call it out, is that Dalton's anticipating this defender goes with Kmet. Because normally they do. Like, this lineup that they've got right here it looks like man. And Dalton basically just guesses the pitch, because with this guy as close as he is to Kmet, usually the linebacker pulls forward, or usually the linebacker follows Kmet right there, and then you end up with this nice little throwing lane to Mooney straight through the linebacker. Well, that doesn't happen though. They're playing like a zone right here, where they've got all 6 guys pinched in, and frankly, it's like a straight 7 across zone. And WY, we definitely will. But so, like this, let's see, Reinhardt. That makes sense. I would say it is like a match quarter look. But so, when Dalton goes to throw this ball, he's trying to just stuff it in to Mooney. But I think he figures out one thing that I've noticed a lot with quarterbacks is that a lot of the absolute worst throws, like the absolute worst throws in this, in football, come from when I believe the quarterback realizes as he draws the ball back, oh crap, I need to throw this somewhere else. Like when the quarterback is thinking, I'm going to throw it here, and then realizes, shoot, I got to throw it there. And they try to make like a mid-team correction, so on and so forth. Like at this point when Dalton throws it, we talked about this earlier, but Dalton's throw is just awful. He might even be trying to throw it away. Like you're saying, Case, to take the bullet throw that he's primed and put it a little further behind so that it goes to nobody. But then, obviously, we know this linebacker gets in front of it and just goes, foop. So, like, he gets stuffed. The goal of this play was the linebacker right here, if I haven't explained it well enough, and I hope I have, the linebacker right here would be on Kmet's back, and Dalton would throw it in. They scored on this in the Jacksonville game. It's a common play. Like, it's not a bad play call, and frankly, Case, if you wanted to score it, you could put the ball there, like, way back. But that's a tough throw. Like, you probably don't even put near as much arc on it as I've drawn it. It looks more like just over that linebacker and there. And then Mooney has a shot at getting to it. But even that's risky. Like, I don't think it would have been an auto interception. Might have been a tough play. But it's one of those that only, like, the beasts make, per se. And I'm with you, Saul. That's more of a Fields throw. Fields likes those back of the end zone balls. I think those are tough anyways. But in this case, Where Dalton did throw it was awful, and it obviously took what should have been a statement moment in the game and just annihilated it. Like, this was classic Bears, right? Where I would tell you that the sad thing is this was one of Mustafer's more standard snaps, and he still kind of gets worked. Like, it's not awful. Frankly, it's kind of a hands to the face right there. But Whitehair is getting beat in this specific case. And yeah, Dalton never saw the linebacker. He 100% thought he was going somewhere else. It's just think of like an MLB batter that guesses the wrong pitch, thinks fastball, gets a curveball, gets destroyed. You know what I mean? Trouble is that in the NFL, if you guess the wrong pitch, you're not just out, you turn the ball over. But yeah, not good. So one that we got too many requests for, Jordan, you can even see me use my little shadow play thing. Here, look at that. Behind the scenes. But so as we get into the game tape, let's watch the kickoff return. And it's blurry again. Why wouldn't it be? So, and it's sharpened. Thank goodness. Let's see what Khalil's looking at. So, Khalil Herbert, in his first snap ever, is sitting there in Los Angeles, and he sees this, which, hey, credit to him. Like, this is a great little cut. Ooh, that's it. The outside man doesn't get contained. Like, and so you end up with this man right here is, I think, who's going to ultimately be the fault of the play, because his one job is making sure that this line right here, Jordan, I got you, that this line right here, Herbert doesn't cross it. Like, Herbert has to get turned up into here so that anyone else can make the tackle. That's his job. And what you see is he comes down on it, forgetting you're looking at a running back. Normally, the guys who carry this stuff are not running backs. Like, what you got to remember with a running back is that you get change of direction with RBs and you lose a little bit of speed. So what you don't have is Mooney, who might, just to pick on somebody, like, Mooney's a good player. Normally you'd be able to have Mooney, for instance, like maybe bend that outside, but I think he bites down and gets it. What Juice here does, Juice Herbert, is he just shuffles his feet, nice little quick foot movement there, and just toasts his guy to the sidelines, and from there it's a race. And again, it's a running back, so he loses a race with the punter, kind of. But in this specific, like in this play, and young Camille, I gotta tell you, as far as like special teams tracks go, I am not an expert. That might be an interesting book to read if I had the patience. But in this case, like, Herbert sees an opportunity. Credit to him for being gutty enough to take it. If he's faster, he scores, but that's okay. He doesn't need to be like crazy fast at a 45, taking it to the 43. Still a net win that comes largely off of it. Bryson, we are 3 hours into this. I respect wanting to look at Jalen Johnson. I do feel like we've looked at a good bit of Jalen Johnson. We just need to do it again. Like, I thought he played well. I may look at it on Twitter or in a second thing, like star of the game or something like that on defense, but we can only do so much. Next up, we'll do the DPI. And then you guys can put stuff in for like one more play, maybe, but we are very late in this. So let's see. There it is, DPI. This was a goofy one right here. But so let's see. The DPI was funny, if only because, yeah, next week's a good test for JJ, because I do think, okay, Peter's Yeet, that makes sense. I do think personally that when I look at Jalen Johnson, he had an ever so slightly easier task this week, not because I don't think Robert Woods is good, but because the Rams' whole plan is to have 5 good receivers instead of anybody that's great. They're technical, which I like them. I would put them in. The trouble is that when you start ranking wide receivers, like I'm going to get out ahead of myself on this. The trouble is that when you start ranking wide receivers, a lot of guys rise to the top really fast. Tyler Lockett's probably better than them. Terry McLaurin's better than them. Like Allen Robinson, you get the idea. Like you can go off of a whole lot of different receivers that are very, very, very talented before Robert Woods makes the list. But he's in the top 50, probably. Like I would say maybe he's even pushing like the 35s and so on and so forth. But with Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf and like so on and so forth, just guys so good at wide receiver, it's hard to make that top group. It really is. There are really, really good receivers in the National Football League, but Cooper Kupp is very good, and Robert Woods is very good, and Van Jefferson is good, and so on and so forth. Like, they've got a whole bunch of people that are too good to just be chill about. And so they overwhelm you with really good play calls and wide receivers that can execute in that region. Like, it's good. And so, yeah, Tyler Lockett's just insane. Tyler Lockett's one of my favorite players. But so here's the DPI. This is a funny one, because I would tell you, and Jordan, I'm interested to hear to see what you think. But the Bears basically run Dragon out of motion, which is nice, because I love the fact that they used this like motion man at the snap all game, and they turned it into a nice little Dragon route to try to see if they could bait Jalen Ramsey. They're still trying to get their just standard third down, go to A-Rob call, right? So they're just trying everything that they can do to make A-Rob happen, and because he's their number one guy. And so they get Marquise Goodwin here running the flat part of Dragon. This is what Dragon is, by the way, if you've never seen it. It is a drag route and a slant route. So normally anyways. In this case, what you get is you get Ramsey fade over, making A-Rob the only decision. This is a very, very, very easy decision. The trouble is, I think Dalton's a little late on it. So A-Rob's broken. He's way broken. And Dalton is only just pulling his hand back to throw it in such a short, it's a short yardage call that I think Dalton throws too far in front of Allen Robinson, and the safety the outside corner makes a good break on it. So it is good defense. Like, it is. But the throw doesn't help Robinson make the play. Now, I get it. If you take a look at this, it's very obvious that the guy gets there too soon, to me. Like, you saw it on the replay. I would show it to you. It would demonetize me. But so we're not going to do that. But the replay shows he's clearly there early. That's not the trouble, though, because this play should be open. Like, in my opinion, this is the kind of play that I don't know whether it's coaching or whether it's I don't know whether it's coaching. I don't know what it is, but I would expect this throw to hit A-Rob practically where he's standing. Exactly, Reinhardt. Like, to me, the DB gets there so early that, I don't know, maybe they said that Robinson ran into him more than he ran into Robinson. But yeah, I mean, to me, Dalton is late on it and the placement's off. It's not a good throw. Like, so it doesn't help anything. It hurts. But so I look at a lot of this stuff, and I mean, you guys know what I've talked about this. Like, this is the sort of thing that I look at and I say to myself, Dalton could have done a better job here. If Dalton had done a better job here, I think he's got a longer leash. I think he shortened it. Like, Dalton shortened his leash. I think net performance, the doomsday clock ticked and ticked and ticked and ticked and ticked. Like, I don't think Dalton did enough to maybe he slowed it a little bit, but exactly like you're saying, like, the Bears fans I'm sure, Jordan, that they were just exploding, because it was, I think in the modern age, you call that DPI. Like, Reinhardt, I get what you mean, but you'd have to be a very defensive referee to get away with that, because he clearly got there early. The trouble is that I think it was a what's the word? Like, it was a flag that would have bailed out a poor execution, which is not helpful. Like, I don't love that kind of stuff. All right, we will go. Oh man, where is it? Because it's in here. I have to figure it out. Let's see. Where's Peters' epic block? I'm going to look through my little sheet. I've got a lot of them written out right here that you can see. So, let's see here. Give me a second to just read. You guys are watching me focus. This is hilarious. I think it is on the TD drive. Man, did I really not write this down? Let's see. Where's the TD? Yeah. We're just going to go through that and find it. So it's a little further. I even know where he is on the field. This might be it. It's not. Oh, I know which one you're referencing, Jordan. It's this one. Here we are. What did I write for this? Oh, yeah. This is what I had as the O-line's best rep yet, without a doubt. Let's see. JP Holtz's block. Yep, that was really nice. For what was up with the 4th and 15 call, Brandon? We can go through that very quickly. One more time. But so basically the defense just played it perfectly. But so you get the idea. Let's see this. So, bang, there's the rep. Basically what happens here, because this is awesome, is that the offensive line drops back and the Rams run a delayed blitz, which is rare. They haven't done a ton of those. They run a safety blitz, in fact, from the nickel. So it's not that it's delayed. It's just that it takes a while to get there. And they haven't run one of these all game. So I don't know who calls it out or who sees it. But the Bears actually do a really good job here. Credit to Peters that he gets down on the safety in a way that, just to call it out, Charles Leno did not when he had to face a similar blitz. So Peters sees that he's on the wrong guy. Massive credit to him. And somehow, at 39 years old, just flips himself around and annihilates the safety for a neat little gain. This is also easily Allen Robinson's best route of the game in terms of a ball that he caught. He runs a beautiful little snag route that pulls 11 just about out of his shoes. If we go back and watch that one more time, you'll see. So a snag route is basically you stem it up, and then you run in, and then you fake it, you turn around, you run it out. It is a very Patriots route. They love to do this with Edelman, so on and so forth. But so from there, you get that beautiful route from A-Rob. He presents himself for the ball. Gorgeous stuff. We're all about it. And yeah, massive credit to Peters here. He just shuffles his feet, gets himself sideways, and blasts his guy. This was great. Ryan, they ran so much RPO. I thought anyways. It looked to me like they ran somewhere between 9 and 13 of them. But so, Saul, I don't think that there's any free agents personally that they should necessarily pick up. And Reinhardt, yeah, the goofy part about stuff like Madden is that they could easily call it a zig route, but it's not something that I don't know. It's always funny with terminology because there are plenty of people that would call, for instance, let's say they were going to run slant or dragon. That's what I know it as. So that's Goodwin there, A-Rob there. Some people call that slants and arrows. Some people call that a whole bunch of things. You pick one school of terminology and you just sort of stick with it. Let's see. So yeah, Jordan, we're about to peel off probably. But so thank you so much, by the way, for sticking by, everybody. This has been great. Hope you enjoy it. Any help paying down the bill for European Game Pass, super appreciated. Don't want to, I don't know. Last thing I ever want to be is the guy who's on the internet, begging for money. Because I don't need, it's not like that. But every donation helps me get a little bit closer to doing this more, which would be awesome because I'd be able to make more. But either way, I love Dragon and a whole bunch of other things like that case. I think it's a great a little play call, so on and so forth. But thank you so much, Reinhardt. I'm glad it was, because this was more freewheeled than I want to admit. I want to come in with a stronger plan, but thankfully this game's general game plan was not that hard to suss out. We've talked a ton about the Bears offense, which I think is the most important, because let's see, the trouble is that the Bears defense just gave us so little to watch. Here is a decent example, by the way. We didn't talk about this at all, of Roquan getting low-key beat in coverage. The Bears defense just looked like they needed a game. The Bears defense, they really had a tough one. Because here, you've got a cover 3 setup, right? You can clearly see that Kendall Vildor is in zone, and Jalen Johnson is in zone, and Eddie Jackson is in zone. And we've got what looks like Tashawn Gibson kicking out to the flat because they're just trying to do something with him. And then you've got 3 linebackers dropping into these areas of the field. So I don't know what Roquan is doing to be slow on this tight end. All I know is he's slower than normal. Maybe he was expecting it to be a shorter route and not like a wheel, but it's a post, and it's a flag. Dang it. Do people call those flags? Like, I learned it as a flag route in 7th grade football, for crying out loud. But every time I say flag, I hear no one else say flag. And I'm like, what is it called? The out route. It's not a post. That's a post. The honey hole ball. Like, I'm super curious to hear what you football guys have to say. But so, yeah, man, Roquan he did not like this corner. That's it, Case. Thank you. But so, yeah, they ended up, oh, that's it, Jordan. You're absolutely right. Like, because I always heard it, Case's run to the flag. But so Gibson crashes down. That must be it, that he thinks he's got help there, and he doesn't. But Rowe gets beat. Thankfully, he catches the guy. They were just rough. And the problem is, if I could be really bold with you guys, like, I think one of the more worrying things is that you would hope that Sean Desai, as a rising star in the NFL, seemingly, would have had these guys at least better communicating, and it may take some time. Chemistry's tough, and defense, like, you make one mistake, you get beat. Because exactly like Case is saying, this is a gorgeous throw too. Like, to give some credit, it's not an easy throw to just casually flick the ball and nail your guy in stride to set up, what is that, 18 yards of like extra space. Like, Stafford smokes it. And he had 156 passer rating. He was outstanding. But he made this look like batting practice. I don't think Burrow's going to be that good. Like, if he was, I would be very scared for the Bears defense going forward, because I don't think Burrow's at Stafford's level right yet. But I will say that, hey, look at that. Eddie Jackson made a tackle. That's new. The trouble was, exactly like you're kind of getting at, Ryan, the communication in the backfield just really struggled. Whether they messed up their rules, whether they goofed certain things, Ogletree struggled. Jackson had too many nope moments. Gibson struggled. Vildor was probably one of their better players. I think some of it's just because they didn't need to target him, and so they didn't. But I thought Jalen was probably the best defender, honestly. Like, as silly as it sounds, I looked at Jalen Johnson, and Jalen Johnson, at the very least, seemed to cover Robert Woods about as well as you would ask for. Christian got toasted all game. I'd say Gibson was a big problem. Like, yeah, that's the other thing, Jordan, that I did not like. Like, what is it? Gosh, yeah. Eddie and Gibson looked like they just didn't understand what was going on at all. Thank you so much, Alessandra. That is so unbelievably kind of you. Thank you so much. But, oh man, this watching all these, this was the whole game. I mean, it looked so easy. Look at that. Especially in the second half, it felt like they really realized that they could just go get anything they wanted from Christian, from Ogletree. The Bears tried to shield Ogletree a little more. You can kind of see it because they had him blitz. They had him do other things. But here, like, check this out. This is so... It hurts. Like, so... You're going to see right here, the Bears are going to send, I think they're going to send 8. They send at least 7, and check out all the pressure they get from it. So they overmatch by a ton, and no problem. Like, it is, oh man, Flacco, yeah, they look awesome. Like the Rams end zones, but like the Bears defense just didn't get anything from anybody. Like, that really hurt to watch. That they didn't get any pass rush. That's the big key. You wanted to talk about, like, how do the Bears beat the Bengals? They rush the passer, they throw the ball deep. It sounds so silly, right? Doesn't that sound archaic almost? Like, that's so easy. It's not. But the Bengals are weakest in their corners, especially compared to the Rams and what they're doing on the back end. If the Bears can get the ball down the field, doesn't have to be 80 yards, doesn't have to be 50 yards. Like, if the Bears can get the ball down the field, 15 yards, 20 yards, 25 yards, 30 yards, they will get much more out of their offense than like they certainly did in this game. But what is the word? Oh, on defense, they got to pressure Burrow. Like, Burrow's not the most mobile quarterback. He just got hurt. And I personally think that with Khalil Mack and Akeem Hicks, hopefully Eddie Goldman, I don't know, don't place your bets yet, but even Mario Edwards and Bilal Nichols and Angelo Blackson and Robert Quinn and Travis Gibson, like, you got enough about what is the word? You have enough there to rush the passer, but you got to do better. Like, Flacco, I talked about this a lot. But you'll see it again. But so Andy can throw deep. I would say Andy's better throwing intermediate, so the 19 to 20 yard region of the field. But I definitely think that Andy, let's get to more Rams offense. Nobody needs to see this. We've talked about it enough. But so I would definitely tell you that Fields is going to be stronger when it comes to truly throwing deep than Fields is. Or, like, Fields is going to be stronger than Dalton is, but I would tell you that that Dalton he's not locked into 10-yard throws. Like, Folds was more like that, locked into those short balls. Mitch was more like that. Dalton's better than that, but the trouble is that he's, I don't know. We'll see. A lot of it's going to come down to the offensive line. Can they figure something out to not get Dalton hit the way that Kirk Cousins was? But you get the idea. Personally, my big fantasy start is going to be Trey Lance. Trey Lance. This is going to be awesome once he gets into the once Lance is starting. I feel like I'm going to have like QB6 or something like that in fantasy. Like, Lance is going to put up so many fantasy points. I'm excited about that. That's like my one piece of fantasy advice. I think Fields is going to be good too, but Lance's offense is so healthy, and Kyle Shanahan's so willing to call like goal line end zone runs for Lance that I feel like it's going to be like having a running back that also throws for 300 yards. I'm excited. But so we'll see, Brandon. I thought that they did a lot of good with the offensive line, but they basically just need like to keep it up, because I thought they did a solid job here. They need to come up with more passing stuff. I think Fields does a lot to help them. He's just so fast. But either way, guys, if you can't tell, I could literally talk about football until I fall asleep on camera. But past a certain point, it's been 3.5 hours. And we've talked about a lot of things, and you've seen a lot of things. But it was chaotic. It was disorganized. I guess I'm kind of talking about both the stream and the defense here. Chaotic, disorganized, and overall like needs to get cleaned up. But I had fun. I hope you guys had fun. So hit that like button and jump on into the chat and do whatever you want. Share this with people. Tell them to watch next time. Watch parties. I don't know, but you guys are awesome. I can't wait. And we will see you guys next time, where hopefully we'll be talking about a big Bears win. Keep an eye out for a video on the Bears running game where I want to go over just a couple more plays. If you can't tell, I didn't highlight them like crazy because I didn't want to spoil everything. But there's a ton of stuff in the run game that I think was really, really cool, especially when you compare it to the way things went last year. And actually, none of that what had to do with what they were doing just personnel-wise. Larry Borum played great, way better than I expected just watching that on the stream. Either way, Game Pass Reinhardt is kind of doing me dirty, but we are committed to the cause. So I will talk to you guys soon. Here's the little editor of things going on. Have a great night, everybody,